You're not handy? Welcome to my world. Not only am I not handy, I'm left-handy and lazy. And when I started investing, I was working full-time and I was raising 3 kids. My sacred duty was to make sure that at least 50% of them made it to the age of 18. That was successful. Not sure how the parenting thing went, though. Very sorry, kids, you didn't have a better parent. Single dad, 3 kids, working full-time and lazy. I did not start investing to create a job. I actually started investing to get rid of a job. One of the motivating factors for me was the laziness. I want to be financially free so that I choose if I work or not, which is not. I wouldn't have invested if I had to be the one doing everything. I definitely didn't invest to do everything. Although in the beginning, it feels like we need to. So when you first start looking at investing, especially if you're going to do something like buy and hold real estate like me, and long-term rentals where I actually hope that my properties perform better than all of my marriages, actually until death do us part. So not only do I want to take care of them so my tenants have a good place to live, but I want to replace things and maintain things and update things to protect the asset that I intend on keeping for a long time. So what do you do if you're not handy? First step, you look up the YouTube channel iHandy, which is women in lingerie doing house repairs. So I learned how to do drywall, replace an electric socket, and realized that those women are much more handy than I am, and I'm much more lazy than they are. So that's not the actual answer for me. YouTube University has how to do everything, how to true a door so it'll work right. How do you do everything? How do you find contractors? How do you order materials? How do you get the best prices? All of that's on YouTube, and none of that is stuff that I want to know. Again, I didn't invest to create a job. I'm investing to get rid of a job. So if you're not handy, I don't want to be handy. My family ran tree services, right? Arborists. So I was the youngest of a bunch of brothers and the lazy one. So I joined the Marine Corps to get away from that kind of work because the Marine Corps was easier. And in the tree work, everyone's handy. You can field strip a chainsaw, put it together. You can work on your equipment because you generally have older equipment that breaks down all the time. And I didn't want to do any of that. I grew up doing that, so I can do it, but I don't want to. So in real estate, when you buy a rental, a lot of times when you have a maintenance item or some kind of repair in the beginning, it feels like you can save money if you go fix it yourself. So if you can fix it yourself, you're going to be the person that saves money. So let's imagine if I could fix things myself, which I've learned to do some things. I have worked next to the handyman to learn something, but more so to get the scope of how long something takes so I can kind of tell what a fair price is. An example is today, I had a garage door completely rebuilt and got a fair price. I actually had a video sent to me that I might share during this live stream on how much interaction it took for me to get a garage door repaired because I'm not the one out there doing it. And in some areas, you can't even go buy the things to fix the garage door unless you're a licensed contractor. Safety of springs becoming projectiles or something, which sounds a lot more fun than it probably is. So if you can fix things and you're working and maybe raising kids or have a spouse or want to have a life, and then you think, okay, what's the travel time to my rental? The actual human interaction of being around the tenants, and then the physical work of doing the repair and maintenance, which is going to the store to get the parts, coming there to put them in, doing the work, and then the travel time back. Add that on top of working a full-time job. Add that on top of growing and developing your side hustle of how much time do you spend looking for deals, making offers, negotiating prices, closing on deals. All of the time it takes to acquire the assets doesn't mean I want to create the job to work on the assets. So my end result was retiring last year after a little over a decade of investing. I had 16 rental units when I retired. I just closed on another duplex. So I'll get used to saying I have 18 rental units that produce a little more than $200,000 a year in profit after all expenses and setting aside for future repairs and taxes, of which I still have to pay someday, but not today. I still haven't paid any. rental income taxes. My tenants pay a little over $40,000 a year in property taxes, which is my way of contributing back to the community, to those first responders in schools, where hopefully the government's actually spending our tax money on that kind of stuff. Have you met government? So not only if I was handy, I wouldn't want to do it, even if I wasn't lazy, because of the time it takes to work a job, to get the income, to develop the lendability, bankability with the banks, so you can get the loans on the properties, to find the properties, vet the properties, filter through the properties, make the offers, negotiate, and then add on top of that, taking care of it. No, thanks. If it took extra work, I'd just be working a job still. So the first thing I want to do is have a basic idea of what construction is. What can be done with or without permits? Maybe go talk to your city. What do they require on? You can find out things like in your area, the MAC on a tree is 14 inches or more. You need a permit if you're going to have it removed. And the MAC at 14 inches or less means you can remove a tree without getting city approval in some areas. You can get it on bigger than a MAC of 14 if the tree is dead and you can prove it, which might take an arborist's opinion. So this all sounds very confusing, like you need to know stuff. No, MAC just means measured at chest. So when you're looking at trees, a lot of people make the mistake of going out to the base and going, okay, this is bigger than 14 inches. I need to go pull a permit. No, stand up, chest height, measure at chest. Is it 14 inches? If it isn't, you don't need a permit. But you don't need to know any of that, because you're going to call the arborist when you're removing a tree. And they know all of that, because if the city inspector comes and an arborist is removing a tree in your yard that would have required a permit, the homeowner might get a slap on the wrist. That arborist, their license is at risk. So they'll take care of those kind of things. You want to know if you do any work in the electric panel, it's probably going to need a permit. The electrician pulls it from Labor and Industries, at least in Washington. It's probably different in each state. If it's work to the house, the contractor might pull a permit. You might pull a permit for a handyman. So you need to know some of those basics on at least asking the contractor, does this require a permit? Calling your city can't hurt either. Although when you call them, almost everything is going to require a permit until you learn the actual rules. I've had, why is my camera freaking out? I've had people tell me, a city tell me, that needs a permit, because they didn't know what MAC meant and they were measuring at the base. So kind of helps to know the rules. The more of the rules that you learn, the better it's going to be. But you don't need to know how to remove a tree or fix a garage door. To find contractors, to find handymen, to find people who will do the work. Right now, there is an electrician and a handyman working here on my property. I'm not doing any of this work. They will. I found them on the Thumbtack app. Right, so this is an app called Thumbtack. It's downloaded for free. It's free for the consumer to use. I believe the contractors and handymen pay probably a fee to be on there. And you can get quotes, read reviews, and the benefit is at the end of the project, you get to leave a review that they want to get a positive review for their next customer, because they're going to read the reviews too. You get multiple quotes. I have quotes coming in on a chimney cleaning because a Section 8 tenant apparently has a wood-burning stove in their house that is not used, but Section 8 says because it's there, it has to be serviced, which that was news to me. Went to Thumbtack, got 3 quotes within an hour. I'm probably going to have it sealed or removed. But this is how handy you need to be. I didn't even know that stove was there. And you don't need to. So Thumbtack is a way to find contractors, get quotes, read reviews, and have things done like the garage door repair or this chimney sweep. The next step is, if you're not handy, how would you do this, right? When you close on a property, one of the first things you need to do on your checklist of property management, if you're going to self-manage, because if you use a property manager, they usually have their own teams of people. But remember, your property manager is going to make more money on your rental than you do. So I like to self-manage, even though I'm not handy and I'm lazy. When you first close in the area that the rental is in, you want to make a list of the plumbing companies, septic, sewer, plumbing, that has 24-hour a day, 7-day a week emergency service. And then you make a list of electricians in the area that have 7-day a week service. Doesn't have to be 20 hours a day, but I like 7-day a week emergency service. You have that list already in your book of how you manage your properties, which for most normal humans is going to be a spreadsheet on your computer. I like tangible, physical, tactile way of doing it on my book. And if you want that broken down, I can explain how this book works. My entire portfolio is in there. The properties are in different counties. I already have the list of plumbers and electricians, and then the handyman that I know that will work in that area, and the Thumbtack app for those emergencies to go and have things done. In the very beginning, when you start investing, it is going to feel like if you do it yourself, you're going to save money because you are paying for the repairs and maintenance. It's coming out of your funds, which in the beginning, like that first 6 months to a year of owning a property, there is a way to calculate the yield. You know, how much of a return am I getting on my property, which is some people will call a cash on cash return on investment. Annual profit divided by cost to acquire. So the annual profit is what's left after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So Matt the Lumberjack landlord calls this as PITIE. So PITIE, expenses. What's left is profit. That's your annual profit. You times every month by 12. Cost to acquire, most people think is down payment, but it's actually down payment, closing costs, and immediate repairs. Lender's also going to want you to have an amount in reserves, but those immediate repairs is how you calculate if this is a deal worth getting or not. So we set aside a certain amount for those immediate repairs. We know from the inspection, sometimes we know it's going to need flooring, it's going to need lights updated, it's going to need windows replaced, whatever you know what those expenses are when you close on it. We call that the cost to make rent ready, money for immediate repairs. In that first 6 months to a year, I also look at things that I'm going to have to maintain. If things haven't been upkept, add that to your cost to acquire. That'll tell you if the yield is still good enough to do it or not. When you have it inspected, and you can look at the garage doors, you can look at the age of the roof, you can look at the age of the water heater, you can plan for a certain amount of expenses that are going to come in that you've added to your cost to acquire. So in that first 6 months to a year, when you pay for maintenance or repairs, that's where that money comes from. After you've had this property for a year, how we calculate the yield, it's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and expenses, right? That E, that future expenses, CapEx and vacancy, that's money coming from the tenants, part of your gross rents that you are setting aside into an account to pay for those repairs. If you are buying a rental and the margin is so thin that you have to go switch out the light because you can't hire somebody to go at $90 an hour or whatever your going rate is in your area to switch out a light, your margins are too thin on that deal and you should be hunting for a better deal. After the first couple of years, I actually look forward to things like the expense that I just had on a garage door, because now I have brand new hardware on that garage door, and I'm probably not going to have to think about that again for decades. And the tenant paid for those repairs because I do 10% for maintenance and 5% for vacancy. So that's 15% of gross rents goes into an account or refills an account when it gets used to do repairs and maintenance. And even in years when I've replaced a roof, I have never come close to spending 15% of gross rents on maintenance. You also have a reserve account, and this scales with the size of your portfolio. When I had 10 units or less, 7 units or less, correct myself there, I kept around $10,000 in my reserve account. As the portfolio grew and I had up to 16 units, I raised that amount to 30,000 because of Murphy's fourth corollary. If any sequence of events can go wrong, they will, and in the worst possible order. So now I had that 30,000 in reserves, 15% of gross rents to refill it or to do maintenance and repairs. And then when I retired last year and no longer had the stability, which is the dream killer, of a paycheck coming in every couple of weeks, I increased my reserves to 50,000. Now I have 18 units. I'm still maintaining the 50,000. I don't know that it needs to be much more than that. Even Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and I think Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time with over 100 units each maintained 50,000 as that emergency reserve. Everything else above that should be being put to work. You don't take the extra cash flow from that 15% that you're setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy and add it to your lifestyle. You add it to the investing fund so the next investment happens faster. And if you need to dip into your reserves, you're not impacting your living style, you're impacting the time it takes to get to the next investment. So I look forward to those expenses It's been over 5 years since I've been to a property to do something myself that I had to do. Oh, yes, I just moved into a recent self-funded house hack burr, my first burr and last burr. And me and Millennial Mike did break into the basement to see what the heck was down there because we didn't know it was there and the inspector couldn't get in. So that was me doing something, but it wasn't work. If you're not handy, get a scope of how long things take by getting multiple quotes. Possibly work next to a handyman a little bit. I did some deck repair, made some screens, which was weird. I thought you could just order screens, but you need to order kits and they make the screens the size of your window. I've done painting, quite a bit of painting. Actually, I kind of enjoy that part. It's hard to mess that up. Although you want the thickest mat you can get. Like 3/4 inch is at a minimum. Thicker the mat, easier the paint. But you just do that so you have an idea of how long things take to know that you're getting a fair price for things. Thumbtack app to find contractors and handymen. Read reviews, get quotes, compare quotes often. I'm making a video for Thursday on why you want to get 3 quotes, and I bet it's not why you think. It's not to compare prices. It's not to compare backgrounds. It's because of the math of time. Explained from a contractor's point of view. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to doing that one because I've explained that in so many conversations. I want to be able to just go, hey, click, here's a video, check it out. And then you don't actually want to do the work yourself, even if you are handy, because you want to do the time dedication to acquiring the assets. Now, if you're absolutely a blithering, insane person, like my brother, if you think I'm crazy, wait till you meet my brother, does his own roofs, does all, he's got a craftsman's skill set. And he enjoys it. He's financially free and retired with rentals, and he enjoys it. Go for it. But while you're working, while you're growing the portfolio, while you're trying to have a life, maybe raising kids, even if you have the skill set, the more you hire other people to do the job, the more likely you are to want to grow the portfolio. Don't let you thinking you need to be handy be the barrier that keeps you trapped in a job for decades. Not too many people are as lazy as me, but there are people who are less handy than me that are much more successful than I am, having never had to go to one of their properties to do anything. So that was the intro to my live stream. If this is your first time to my channel, this is kind of how this starts. I usually do 10 to 15 minutes in the beginning, and I think I need 17 minutes. Oops. Where's my timer? I have a Sands of Iwo Jima timer somewhere. I need to get that thing out here. That video will be pulled out and later released on a weekend. I take the intros to my live streams and release them on the weekend because not everybody's going to click on a 2 or 3 hour live stream ever. And so they missed that whole intro. So making separate videos on that. The rest of this live stream is me probably looking down at the chat and seeing 50 people say, hey, your sound hasn't been on this whole time, which would be awesome. You want to mess with a YouTuber? Just keep saying the sound's not working. But this is where I'm hoping you bring questions and I give you answers. One of the really important things with real estate is knowing what a successful investor keeps in their mind, not what they have to look up. If you asked a very detailed, I'm looking at doing a reverse 1031 exchange on a triplex that I self-managed and I lived in one of the units. How do I do depreciation recapture when it's only 2/3 or some detailed thing like that? Yeah, I'm going to have to Google it and talk to a CPA. I don't keep that in the top of my mind. Here's what I know about taxes. Congress is around 500 or 600 people working in Congress who own properties, who for some reason keep making laws that benefit people who own properties. So I want to own properties. That's all I need to know about taxes. Hire a pro to handle everything else. But if you ask me something like, how do you run the numbers on a house hack? Or one of the first questions I saw pop up in the chat before the video started, which I really appreciate. I love it when questions show up before the video starts. Thank you for that. Should you have every property in an LLC? So that's going to be one of the first things I cover. And everybody who does watch my content realizes it's time to go get a beer or a soda because it's going to be at least 5 minutes of me trying not to sound like a douchebag, explaining why that's a great question and a question that irritates me. Not because people ask it. That's a cool thing. It's because the doofuses that don't know what they're talking about jump in, who've never owned a rental, and give advice on what you should do there. So please keep the questions coming. This live stream is going to go as long as the water in my cup that makes my eyes water lasts. Howdy. Ninja Vanish. You beat Dave. Oh, poor Dave. You were first in spirit, Dave. Angel R. Howdy. I need this live video. It's the opposite for me. I'm quite handy, but going crazy doing everything myself. There you go. So even if you can do it, you are more likely to want to grow the portfolio if it doesn't add work to your workday life. And part of the math of time for me was when I had one tenant. When I first started, it felt like it took 20 hours to manage that tenant. Now with 18 units, it's still taking me less than 2 hours a month, even with a garage door breaking, which took, I could probably actually look at how many messages it took. Oh, and he thanked me for the payment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 back and forth total. 3 of those were mine. And a Zelle payment. That's what it took to manage my properties. When's the last time I did anything other than the one I'm burring right now? Here's why the math of time seems like it takes so long at the beginning. It takes much more time to learn a skill than to use a skill. And not just because of the stress, because you actually have to learn it. Okay, cool. So, in this guy's name, top 1 garage doors, if you're in Pierce or Thurston County, amazing work, quick, responsive, good price, best price out of several estimates. Very communicative, told me everything. He sent me a video. I'm going to play a video on the work he did, the explanation of why the work he did towards the end of this live, so that I don't bore people who don't want to see that right now. But that was cool to me. So highly recommend. Found on Thumbtack. I'm going to use this second, third, fourth time I've probably used them. Doesn't only do garage doors, does a bunch of other stuff too. Cody. Oh man, I'm the least handy person you'll know. This was the first thing I outsourced. Exactly. Yeah. Angel, I'm a DIY person, so contractor quotes feel steep. I'll explain that in that video coming on Thursday. I gotta take a note to do that too. It made me it's made me wary of new properties. Now I'm saving up and reminding myself that tenant's money covers repairs, not mine. Beautiful. It's almost like I've heard a very smart person say that one time. At least they thought they were smart. Valentino. Great topic, Dion. Can you go over LLCs for each property? Is that smart? And this is where Valentino, I saw the question pop up when I was prepping this, which is code word for I need a 10-year-old to help me set my stuff up because none of it works. And it's a good question. And when you're starting out, this is a question you should ask, right? Because you think asset protection, you think tax benefits, you think business structure, you think credibility, you think there's like all these reasons why you're which is the best way to do this. So I want to start with if I get the littlest bit of emotion to creep into my voice, it's because usually when somebody asks this question, a doofus who's never owned a property or owns a few and is going off of something their uncle said in 1960 will say, here's all the reasons why you need an LLC. Like you need an LLC to start, right? When you're starting out, how do you learn how to save? How do you get your credit score better? How do you find the right lender to work with? How do you pick a strategy, then find a market for that strategy to go in and make sure that that strategy is actually going to work in that market? How do you find a mentor or groups of people to interact with that can help you in that local market? How do you find agents? How do you source your deals? How do you all the basics you need to have? There's like this drinking from a fire hose experience the first couple of years. And then you want to add business structure to it, which increases your insurance cost and it makes lending much harder. How do you pay yourself? What do you name it? Like you put all of these barriers in front of buy a property, put a tenant in it, rent it out for more than it costs. Like they're extremely basic. And then you can grow on top of that on how do you increase your yield? How do you find the best deal? Like all the skills it takes to run that type of business successfully. LLC can come later. And I'll justify it with there are times having an LLC makes sense. but it's not for why everybody keeps saying. If you have partners, a limited liability company, the intent of that is to limit your liability to someone else's mistakes, not yours. So if you don't have partners, there's no asset protection with an LLC. The two counties, no, it's three. I have to find out what the third, but the two counties that I invested in for the last decade, they actually used the 1996 IRS precedents and disregard all single member LLCs. They don't exist. When you're sued, all of your assets are at risk. Each one of your LLCs is an asset of yours. So when your assets is sued, that LLC is you because it's disregarded. That's what's happening now. For years, they would pierce the veil. So they would look at how you formed it. How did you pay yourself? Did you ever commingle finances? Like all kinds of ways to get rid of the LLC. So it's not good asset protection. I'll talk about three forms of asset protection that do help. And then they'll say tax benefits. Well, I quoted the 1996 IRS precedents that all sole member LLCs, which is a person or a married couple, are disregarded entities. There are absolutely no tax benefits to having your property in an LLC. None. I get every single write-off that somebody that wasted their money and time and energy and effort on putting an LLC in place for gets. I can write off my car, the office space in my house, my cell phone, everything that's used for the business. And beyond real estate, anytime you travel, talk to a realtor. Check out the market. You can make trips write-offs too. Check with your CPA. I also use YouTube as a reason because I'll make videos when I'm traveling. So that adds another layer there for me. But the LLC doesn't provide any of those benefits. In California, for example, if you buy a single family house with an ADU or a duplex and it's in your own name, it is not rent controlled. Put it in an LLC and guess what? You magically put it under rent control. Yay, you. All of the negatives, none of the positives. But if you have partners, it will protect you from their mistakes. And if there are certain lending situations where if you want to use hard money or a DSCR loan, there are some times when a lender will require that it go into an LLC. When those are the case, absolutely. If you have 5 or 10 properties and you have cash flow coming in and you want to sleep better because somewhere in your caveman lizard brain, you think it gives you better asset protection, sure, who cares? But that brand new person that has 0, 1 or 2 properties that doesn't have the cash flow to pay for the yearly maintenance, the creation of it, the extra charge for filing on more than one entity, like all of the negatives that comes with it, I don't recommend it in the beginning. Think about it later. You can waste money on it later. That's why I kind of love the question. It means you're thinking the right way. How do I do this? How do I do this the safest and most cost-effective way? So I'm going to ask the questions from somebody who's done it. So if you're in any of the Facebook groups where people ask that question, you see the answers and it's always, oh, my CPA or my attorney said I need to do it. You mean the person who gets paid to set it up, maintain it, and file taxes on it is going to tell you need more? Really? That's so weird. Great question. Thank you. 3 forms of asset protection. Really quick, and then I'll get into the next question. First one, insurance. Insurance is what you need. I do up to $300,000 injury, so slip fall coverage, then full replacement value on the building. Don't go with just mortgage coverage because your lender is going to require that they're made whole. I want to be made whole too. So it's full building replacement if the building burns down. It costs a little bit more, but it's not much. It's like less than $30 more a year is the difference with the policies I have. I should have done this at 3 properties, but when I hit 4, I added an umbrella policy. And originally it was like $550 a year for $2 million in coverage. Now it's $680 or something because insurance has gone up, but still $2 million in coverage that gets triggered if anything goes above the $300,000 on the properties. They'll also require your vehicle insurance, and it's above the state minimums in some cases, but that was a $6 a year difference for me. So I think it was worth it. So umbrella insurance after the property insurance. Second thing is leverage. I own 8 properties, 18 units. 6 of these properties have mortgages. So the banks are in first position on 6 of my properties. And the third thing, the most important asset protection you have if you're going to be a landlord and own rental properties, fix things. Be proactive. You do inspections. When a tenant calls and says, hey, my garage door is working, that's a safety thing. Garage door can become a guillotine, right? I said that right. I think I spelled it wrong, but you want to immediately go, that's a safety thing, get it fixed. It's securability of their property in their garage, and it's a safety person possibly being injured. So that text came in, I could look up probably 2 days ago, and today the work was done. Most places give you 20 to 30 days to respond to something like that, but it can be as quick as you want. So those are the three forms of asset protection I actually do use. Me. Tenant's money does not pay for repairs. I will not disagree with you, but I'm going to give my thought process on it. But I'm hoping to become more handy and do as much as I can myself. So now maybe you've heard, we set aside a part of gross rents, 15% of gross rents for me. It's 10% for repairs and maintenance, 5% for vacancy. So that money goes into a fund. And then when my tenant calls and says there's a water heater leak, that fund, tenant's money built up over time, replaces the water heater. And I'm excited because my tenants purchased me and paid for the labor, helped a local community to put a water heater in my property. I now have another 8 to 12 years, depending on where the water heater is located, before I have to think about that water heater again. I just replaced one that was put in 1991. It's probably my longest ongoing experiment. It was in before I owned the property. So you do have a point. It is your money, and the less you spend, the more profit you make. But if you categorize it, this percent of gross rents is going into an account specifically for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. Then the tenants are paying for it, and your stress level of spending money fixing your properties goes down. So I sit back and I go, today, I could go and probably figure out how to fix a garage door. Or I could pay $564 plus a $100 tip to have a garage door fixed and sit at home. And I'm not going to say I played Baldur's Gate 3 all day, but I'm a nerd. So that's what I did. Alantino, thank you for the super chat. I much appreciate it. Dang, thank you so much. Live in California, and yes, a CPA record. Oh, imagine that. Sorry. I'm not always a sarcastic douchebag. It just comes out sometimes. Can you do a full video on this? I can. So if you go to my channel and you search LLC Rant, Dion Talk, R-A-N-T, Rant. It's already on there. And it has a little bit more information than what I covered tonight, but it gives you a point of reference to go back and find like a 7-minute video instead of having to look through a live stream and go, okay, where was it that we talked about that? Thank you for the super chat. It's greatly appreciated, because that tells YouTube somebody might like my content and possibly share this with more people. I think there was another here from Adam. Howdy, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Great live stream. I want to look and see if there's any question I missed here from you, Adam. And congratulations, because you were telling me last time about your closing. Okay, then I missed my spot in the chat here. The reason I read these, I know you guys are here and you can see the chat, but I also do this for future land, where someone might be driving and they're not going to be looking at the chat. Janet, howdy, hello from Los Angeles. I'm very sorry. I grew up in Rosamond and Palmdale, and joined the Marines also to get away from tree work and to get away from California. And they put me in 29 Palms, in Saudi, Kuwait, Bosnia, like everywhere there's dirt. And it's like, yeah, this is where this guy wants to go. So when I got out, I looked at the whole country and I thought, it rains in Maine and it rains in Washington, and Stephen King's stuff all over here. So I moved to Washington. Been here ever since. You're planning to be in the Vegas Zubert next year. I'm hoping to be, yes. Well, no, I'm planning on, no matter what, I'm going to be there. Yeah, I'm contributing 1/10 of whatever Zuber spends. I'm going to contribute that same amount. It's going to be a great event. I think everybody's going to have a good time. Tons to learn, because you never know what you're going to learn on a side conversation that's sparked because of something somebody on stage said. I went to the last one in Sacramento. I think there was just as many people there from Washington as there was from California. Beth Traverso went, Millennium Mike went, Cody and Christian were there. I'm trying to think, from Washington. That ADU guy was there, he's from Oregon. Close. Trucking landlord, howdy. I'm having great difficulty finding handymen, cleaners, and painters in my town of 6,000 Northeast Iowa. Angeles, Thumbtack, and Craigslist are a bust. Local Facebook groups of investors, word of mouth, and then think of related skill sets. Gutter cleaner, right? Junk removal, those types of people will do, and you have to know your local laws. Like in California, you have to be a licensed contractor if it's over $500 because California. But in your area, people who do things similar to what you're looking to have done could also do it, and sometimes for a better price than like a dedicated, I'm a painter, that's all I do. Hope that helps. Frank, howdy. I'll see you, Frank, on Saturday, and Adam and Michelle. We're having the course class at 4 p.m. on Saturday. I believe last Saturday was my last. I'm a teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets rookie boot camps, and I think this was the last Saturday of our current boot camp. So I'll be doing a members only live this Saturday, which is one where members only live streams are not done on YouTube because it would kill my channel. It's super boring. We open up emails and we look at deals in my market and the members markets, and then we compare. We look stream of consciousness. What would I look at for this property in this market, and what are the things I would consider? We'll be doing that this weekend, and we did it last weekend too. And those live streams are up for members in Futureland as well. All-nighter hider, howdy. Piloting my truck for a little while. 16 weeks till you hang up the truck keys. Nice. Congratulations, trucking landlord. Pretty awesome. Laura, howdy. Early retirement wishes to you. All-nighter hider to trucking landlord. Me too. Good job. Anna, howdy. Michelle, looks like Alatino is in for a treat. Hopefully it was. Hopefully it was educational. I hope it helped. Michelle, repairs are a hard thing for me too. I think I can do it all, yet I know I can't. But when I get quotes, it is so tempting, learning the hard way that it is better to pay for things. I think I have like a threshold of when I go, okay, I'm going to get quotes on this thing. How much time would it take me to do? How much frustration would it create if I do it myself? Is it something I might enjoy, like the painting thing? And here's one of the reasons. This is kind of a side note, Michelle. Let's say I have something very easy, like switching out a light. I could go and I could do it, and it would take me probably 20 minutes. Or I can hire a handyman who will go out there, probably bill half hour or an hour, make $100 or $200, whatever their rate is, right? And then that handyman is more likely to work with me because I'm not only calling them for the ones where you got to crawl in the crawl space, you got to fight the wild animals that live in there, and you got to do something very hard and uncomfortable, and it's just really hot and sweaty or whatever. I hire them for the easy stuff. They're more likely to do the hard stuff. And I have that conversation with them. This is something I could probably do, but I like to hire guys like you for these easy things. Then you're more likely to do the hard things. They laugh, I laugh, and then they do the hard things. Michelle, I spent 5 to 6 months doing a remodel last year and still had to pay for it to look decent since I'm not good at everything. My only excuse is now I was having a hard time finding help. Now, every person I see, I ask for their number. Looks like I'm hitting on every contractor at Home Depot, Lowe's, or the gas station. Me too. Some of those guys are cute. No, so it's build your list. Always looking to add. And whenever, so what I do with the Thumbtack app to find contractors is I'll hire somebody to fix a gate. In that interaction, how prompt are they? How do they communicate? What was their interaction like with the tenant? And then if all of that was good, what else do you do? What's your specialty? I've got a handyman specialty is plumbing. Another handyman who has a subcontractor that's an electrician. I know who I'm calling when it's certain things. The wealth building journey. Howdy. Good evening to you too. Rob. Dion uses rehabs as exposure therapy for his fear of spiders. That is accurate. Stanley. He's still there somewhere. I know it. The wealth building journey. Zuber is right about the median and below being white hot. A property I scheduled to see tomorrow that went on the market yesterday is already under contract. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I think not only is it hot, the $200,000 to $700,000 properties, and I don't make predictions because this doesn't matter. Those prices are going to go up. If somebody's making a prediction and telling you, you need to hurry and buy because XYZ, or you need to wait and buy XYZ, block them. The market, the prices, the rates, the yield, the recession, the bear, the boom, the bull, the butt, none of that matters. None of that tells you when to buy a property. There's two things that tell you when to buy a property. And if I don't say them, I bet 5 or 6 people will probably type it out and put it in the comments, because I say it often. There are two things that tell you when to buy a property, and none of the things that most people go and see. Well, what do we think? Because Warren Buffett says it. He says, if I knew where the interest rates were going to be in 2 years, I'd invest exactly the same. Because what's going to happen with rates and prices and rents doesn't determine when you buy. Price and pride. Howdy, this show starts earlier and earlier these days, 4 p.m. Pacific on the dot. Sometimes a minute or too late because I'm not a 10-year-old and I don't understand technology. Dion, for it to be a good deal for you, how much do you want to cash flow per door day one? Angel R, thank you for asking the question. That's a great question, because when you watch BiggerPockets or other podcasts where they talk about, I have this many doors, this much cash flow, we quickly do the math and we go, oh, I had 16 doors up until July of this year. Last year, profit was 203,000. Math, 17,000, a couple $100 a month in profit, right? So how many is that per door? 16 doors, 17,000 profit, a little over $1,000 a door, average. That's never the way I looked at it. We can retroactively look, how much did I make per door? I never use that as a metric as to what I'm buying. I like to have a minimum. So I wouldn't want to own a property that made less than $100 a door. For me, that would be the time, energy, and effort to acquire, to maintain, to manage a tenant. Too much effort for less than $100 a door. So I do have a minimum, but that's not how I find it. I invest in a high cost of living area where I'm investing for yield, right? Annual profit divided by cost to acquire gets me a percentage. And the idea from right out of One Round Still at a Time from Michael Zimmer is you take 60 to 90 days, learn your market. And yeah, once you've been doing this for several years, you can probably do it in a month. But when you're first starting out, take 60 to 90, learn what is an average deal. And for me, the math looks like this. I look at 100 deals, 80 of them suck and are dismissed, never looked at again. 20 of them might make money. Out of those 20, I look for the best yields and I make offers, and then I finally get one accepted. Eventually, sometimes years between purchases, because the things that tell you when to buy, there's those two things, and you got to get your offer accepted. So the cash flow per door in a high cost of living area with a yield. Now, once you learn the area average, you want to beat it. So I was able to find pretty consistently out of those 20 deals that didn't suck, somewhere between a 6 and 8% cash on cash return. So I shot for 10s. As I sat and looked, I started thinking, okay, should I lower my percentage from 10 to 8? Because I'm not finding hardly any 6 and 8s anymore. I was finding all 4s and 5s as prices were staying sticky and interest rates were catching up and rents weren't catching up as fast. Instead, I expanded my market. Technically, first I went to Portugal, thought I'd buy there, and realized I don't like the people there, so I didn't buy there. And I expanded my market, and I watched days on market. So I looked for properties that sat for a long time and made ridiculously low offers to find a place with that low offer that got me the yield I was looking for. High cost of living area, yield method gets me much. I think my lowest per door was like $400 a door. And they're most, by year 3, average, 800, 900. And then I do have paid off single family house. So that kind of skews the numbers on how much I get per door. But my average is $1,000 or more per door. Once this burr is done and the other side is rented out, and I don't have a mortgage, and I've rented out the room of the place I moved to do this house hack, those numbers will look better. It's almost like investing is good for you. I'll share those numbers. That's another thing I do is I can share my numbers transparently. So that's how I look at cash flow. It's not per door. It's not a minimum amount that I'm looking to invest for. I have a minimum amount because I wouldn't want less than that. But I would buy something that if it made $110 a month, if the yield was good enough. But generally, since I'm in a higher cost of living area, the yield, it tends to be several $100s per month per door. That's how I look at that. Trucking landlord, who, not how. Exactly. Peter, howdy. What do you think about LA County's funding approval for ADUs? Wonder what the eligible requirements are going to be. So yes and no. There was a lawyer throwing a royal fit recently, saying that people in certain areas of Los Angeles should just sell all their stuff and move. It's a new rent control proposal by a city that retroactively set the rents to where they were 2 years ago. Didn't pass, didn't make it out of committee. But when a bill like that is presented and people say, you should just not own here, I don't know about the ADU thing in LA County. My brother invests in California, but he's outside of LA County. He's up in Kern County. Somebody is successfully investing everywhere. I'm not sure about the funding for ADUs. I know that some larger, county, state, federal are pushing for ADUs, but some municipalities are fighting it, finding ways to not allow it to go through. So it kind of depends on where you're at. The wealth building journey, scale equals network. You ready to look at it? And then I see my chat moved, which I appreciate, and chats are coming in. I see Adam Cullen retracted a message to make me lose sleep tonight and wonder forever and ever what was really said. Why did my chat move so much? Here we go. Angel R. Agree, doing everything myself has instilled some fear of growing my portfolio. Need more connections. Totally agree. The wealth building journey. Can anybody else here down? No, his sound must be off. That's terrible. Art. Howdy. When listing a rental, what criteria or what part of your description would be the most important? Yes, I think. Art, it's a joke, Art. If you want to mess with a YouTuber, just keep asking if their sound is working. Because I have hit the mute button to sneeze or cough or something, missed the mute button, and then talked for 10 minutes in a live stream. So when I'm listing a rental, I think, I thought for years incorrectly. As an investor, when I look at a rental property, we think of square footage, we think bedroom count, we think, what else do we think? Amenities, right? Tenants don't think in square footage. They don't think in age of building. A brand new building, 15-year-old building, going to rent the same. It's where it's at. Where is it at? What's the parking like? What's the kitchen like? Does it have a washer dryer hookup? So what matters the most, I think, when you're listing a rental, I took the Lumberjack Landlord's course, to critique it, to try to add stuff to it. I put the binder stuff in there. He has a really good system for figuring out the things that matter to a tenant, right? And I don't have it all memorized, so this is off the top of my head, but what's close to it? What school districts is it in? So they don't have to do a separate Google search with your thing. How far is public transportation? How far is shopping? How far is all the things that are going to matter to the tenant? When it comes to things like washer, dryer, bedroom count, parking, they think in pictures sometimes, not always. So you do want to say, I have washer, dryer hookups, but you want a picture of washer, dryer. If you have a nice looking kitchen and a kind of a scary looking outside, have the kitchen be the first image that they see, right? So what you're listing is what's going to matter to the tenant, not what would matter to an investor. Make sure you put your criteria in there, especially if you're using a platform like Hemlane that goes on to 30 things, which is what I'm using for my properties going forward. I have 300. I'm going to be adding more. The one downstairs here is probably going to go on there. Because if an applicant goes to apartments.com, sees your rental, likes it, does an application, and you require, for me, I require 700 credit score, no evictions ever, and I don't look at anything else really. I verify work where they work, but that's just to try to catch an NOI. I don't care how much they make or how long they've worked there. It's just credit score and no evictions ever. Well, what if they don't meet my criteria and they waste $35 on Zillow or $45 on apartments.com to do an application that doesn't meet it? So in there, very clearly spell out my requirements before you fill out an application are this credit score, no evictions ever, this multiplier of the rent or whatever you might choose to go with. But top to bottom, left to right in images, the number of bedrooms, if there's washer dryer hookups, if there's parking, actually show in images, those kind of things. That's what I think is the most important. Donnie, sorry. Wealth building journey. There you go. Chanda, howdy. Is it a good idea to use handyman for HVAC repairs? He claims he knows how to work on it, but what would you do in this situation? Thanks. So if it goes into anything into electric where they're going to go into the wall, no, I want an electrician doing that. So not a handyman unless they have a sub that's an electrician like the one I have. If it's in the HVAC system itself, generally I have a handyman work on that. Know your state and local laws. There might be requirements for that you might want to reach out and find out about. Yeah, I've had handyman work on HVAC systems. They're actually fairly simple. Depending on your system, right? If you have something unique, maybe not. If you're having a handyman on it to work on it, have an HVAC company give you an estimate and then compare the information, because your handyman might not be aware of something specific to that unit that the HVAC technician could tell you. And then after that interaction, you will know if you want to go with your handyman or the HVAC service person. Trying to think of, now I've used handyman on my HVAC system. I only have, I think, 2 properties that have HVAC systems. Washington were mostly just baseboard heat and window mounted AC units because we run it 3 or 4 days a year. But in your area, it might be more normal to have HVAC in all of your properties, and then know your local laws. Some areas might require that if it's in the HVAC system, it has to be worked on. All-nighter hydrant might know, or one of the other people here, handyman, Frank, that does rehabs. I mean, you guys might know in your areas if there are requirements for that too. It isn't where I'm at. Lars, howdy. The extra strength water. All-nighter hydrant. It's a labor of love for me too, but I only want to do it as long as I have to. I loved my job. I actually loved working. So not only like do handyman and repairs, I like to paint. As long as I enjoy it, I'll probably paint the next thing. Not great. I'm going to show you the painting here. Get ready, motion sickness with the camera. But so I reached financial freedom in 2018, worked for 4 more years, and then retired last year. Even though I loved my job, loved going to work, loved what I did, who I worked with, the people I interacted with, time freedom won out. So when it comes to managing the properties, there will probably be a time where I'm like, I could totally go paint that. It would be fun. Or I could goof off and play Baldur's Gate 3 all day. And then someone else will paint it. REI stoners, howdy. Make sure you round the numbers on a few properties every day. It pays off. It really does. When you're coming up here, Ryan, I'll put you to work. All-nighter hider. Good advice. REI Stoners is going through the make-ready phase of closing. He had already closed on his duplex for house hack, and now it's the make-ready phase. Wolf Building Journey, it's all-nighter. Are there any properties you have your eye on? Michelle, did you miss a video of REI's newest closing? He hasn't offered to make it with me yet. All-nighter hider is looking at Gary. Nice. Lars, hi Dion, I'm listening from Iceland. Awesome. Just bought my second rental in Delaware, and I live in, I think I'm going to say it's Oregon, because unless there's an OR in Delaware. I have a property manager. If you were in my situation, would you self-manage, and how would you set it up? How would you set it up? If you are doing a property at a distance, I recommend property management. Right, one of my good friend of mine is investing in Gary, Indiana, but he lives here near Seattle, but not in Seattle, Washington. And he uses property manager, and I think he's doing it very well. Right, so that's what I would do. I don't recommend self-managing at a distance. The one caveat is I live here in Washington. I'm self-managing my properties for a decade. I've got all the systems in place, probably close to a dozen handymen now that I can reach out to for different projects, different contractors that I know. Good tenants, kind of, what do you call it? Not locked in, dialed in. They're dialed in tenants. Like I know when we interact, how the interaction is going to go. And if I were to move away, I would probably continue to self-manage. Right. So if you live there and you know you got all your systems in place with confidence, you move away and probably self-manage. I wouldn't want to start investing at a distance, self-managing. I would hunt through several self-managers like Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, says, kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. Not sure why you want a prince managing your properties, but It all makes sense if you don't think about it. That's how I would do that, Lars. Nice. And I think my daughter is going to Iceland soon. That's her trip. We had the conversation of Iceland, Greenland, how, and both of them are fairly cold, but Iceland is more trees and people friendly than Greenland. And they named them that to attract more people from out of other countries. They figured if you're getting on a boat to go somewhere, you're more likely to go to Greenland than Iceland or something like that. There was a lot of strong water involved in conversation. My daughter's one of those people who taught me how to do shots when she was like 16. Very proud dad moment. Her trick, which seems to work when I remember it, is to put whatever you're about to drink in your mouth and let it sit there. Let your body physiologically adjust to what's about to happen, and then drink it. Second and a half. Or maybe she's a raging alcoholic. I don't know. Dan, howdy. What would you do if new renting laws stated landlords can't automatically deny you because of your credit score or eviction record? So they did that with a few things. Like there's areas where you're not allowed to ask criminal background stuff. So if you can't do credit score, and credit score can change at a time. Credit history could be factored, or eviction record. What would I do? I would thank everybody who voted for the left again. That is a good question. So currently those laws don't exist. And the more restrictive laws are, the more wealthy it makes landlords. Nobody believes me when I say that, not nobody. Most people don't believe me when I say this. But like rent control makes landlords filthy rich and more people homeless. The more risk you put on the landlord, the higher the rent needs to be to justify that risk. So we force people to do the maximum allowable rent increase every year versus I have tenants in place 3-4 years, have never touched their rent. Might do it next year. Did everybody in 2021 because nobody had any adjustment in 2020. Most didn't have an adjustment in 2019. So it'd been a couple of years before we did an adjustment. And then the tenants set the rent. Meet in person, probably verify work history, more importantly, income. I'd probably look at other metrics because remember, whenever we interview somebody to be a tenant, you are making a macroscopic decision on microscopic data. So find any other way to formulate an opinion on whether you'd want that to be a tenant or not. But the really cool thing is, let's say you buy properties now and you invest for a decade, and then those laws go into place. Well, it's terrible. You'd sell everything because it's just stupid. And you can't do it anymore. And now you just have several $1 million to go figure out what to do with that you wouldn't have if you didn't invest in real estate. Good question. Wealth building journey. I'm realizing I may have a bunch of novice investors in my market who are overpaying for properties. That's a good thought, but so wealth building journey. Who's our biggest competition? I'm gonna let you put that in the chat. So I'm gonna keep talking while you put that in the chat. When we're looking at investing on properties and we see what properties are going for, and we think that's dumb, that person's not going to cash flow. Are they doing long-term tenants? Do you know? Mid-term tenants, short-term tenants? Are they investing in inheritance? Are they 1031ing funds from a property where they put $20,000 in it in 1990, and now they're moving $600,000 that to them mentally is $20,000, and they want to 1031 it so they're not paying any taxes? So they don't care about the yield the way an investor is going to. We don't know the situation of the people that we are competing with in our market. And Art T is right. Our biggest competition as investors is homeowners. They're not calculating yield. They are thinking, and it starts in any order. It could be, does the kitchen face the way that I want it to? Is the sink facing the window in the way that I want it to? What's the most important thing to that person? Is it within a certain commuting distance of my property? I've seen parents purchase a house near a college so that their kids could live there and not care about what the price is. Because there's a 4-tiered system of who will pay what for a property. The most expensive person buying a property is generally going to be a homeowner. It could be somebody that is 1031 in cash and wanting to hide, the gains and not thinking about how much they're investing as much as how much they had invested. It could be a foreign investor that is watching the news and saying, wow, China is going to implode. We're all going to die. So I better take my money and buy property in the US because that's fairly stable. So they don't care about the return, the yield, the appreciation, the pay down, anything. They're just putting money there as a store of cash. But it's homeowners because they buy based on payment. So not always, because those other examples, but it's usually homeowners. Then investors, then flippers, then wholesalers. Right? So there's a tier to who will buy what. And for most markets, the best thing to do is to buy a property that cash flows. That could be turnkey. It could be not a turnkey company, but it doesn't need much work, or it could be a full rehab to get the best amount of your money. Now, if you're working full-time raising 3 kids, I didn't do any rehabs until the one I just purchased, because now they're out of the house and I retired. So I have the time to sit around and play Baldur's Gate 3 while this work's being done. Not that one through. But don't try to compare what you see other people paying for properties, because it'll drive you crazy. You'll be like, that was a terrible deal. I was going to watch that, and when it hit days on market, I was going to offer 20% less, and I would probably get a good deal. Nope, it's gone. And it's gone. Yeah. And you could have novices that are overpaying for properties as well, or making a different play than you too. REI owners, when is the Vegas meetup? Zuber has started to plan it. He's in the preparation phase of contacting several places to figure out what the cost is per room, how many people can fit. I think he's pledged to spend at least 10 grand. So I'm doing at least a tenth of that. So as his expenses go up, mine will probably go up too. Date not set yet. February would be awesome. Be a good time. I'd have to come back from Thailand, but totally worth the trip. Michelle, been missing the classes and members' lives, but only because I have been having too much fun. Awesome. Thanks, Dion. You made a lot of this possible. Boarding a cruise Saturday. Awesome. Totally fun. I have a cruise September 13th doing Mediterranean. Where are you going? I hope yours is a trip full. Awesome. Get the drink package, because when you do the math, it's like something like you get $128 or whatever of alcohol, free alcohol every day. It means if you don't drink at least $128 worth every day, you wasted money. Don't be wasteful. Water. Drink a lot of water. Right. Not at the Sapphire Strip Club. No. The wealth building journey. First, are you ready to buy? Which means the normal response is, are you ready? Which means, do you have the down payment, closing costs, money for immediate repairs, and reserves? Okay, that means you're ready. No, that's the first step. Are you ready also means you're not going through a divorce. You don't have a birth happening like right now. You didn't have a recent death, and you're not losing your job. Like there's nothing going on in your life that's taking your mental bandwidth away from your ability to focus on investing. Are you ready? The second thing, how'd you put it? You said so. Are you ready? Well, someone else add number 2. Let's see if anybody else got here. I'm new here. And Valentino, thank you for hanging out. I will give you number 2 unless somebody else put it in here. Somebody said. Okay, good. So I get to go over Druid and Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't tried it yet. I play Wizard usually. I play stuff I can't be. Although I probably am. Got to show at the Lumberjack Landlord my card tricks in this last trip. That was fun. And I lost where I was in the chat. Type today. Go. Somebody else put number 2. Okay. I didn't see anybody else put number 2. First thing is, are you ready? So Valentino, here's number 2. The first thing is, are you ready? None of those things going on, and you have the down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs, and reserves. Second thing, did you find a great deal? You only know if it's a great deal if you've learned your market, learned what the average yield is, know the other things you're looking for. Is it in the market you want to invest? And when you pick a market, a lot of people are going to say, well, I have these lists of things I want for my market. I want population uptrending, which you can find out on county websites, or go to U-Haul and see where all their trucks are moving. I want several economic drivers, so I have sources of tenants. I want washer dryer hookups because somebody waiting for a laundromat or shared laundry is just looking for a place to move to. I want enough parking, like you have all this list, but the most important thing when picking the market is that you have trusted boots on the ground there. That somehow is also tied to real estate. So either you live there, so you invest locally, or you used to live there and know the market, or you have a friend or family member that you trust so much you think they're going to come to your funeral. That's the level of trust that you want to have. And they also are either a realtor, lender, contractor, property manager, something somehow related to investor. But did you find a great deal? The math is what most investors focus on. Will I hit my yield? But then also, does it have enough parking for the type of property you want? If you're doing a wealth building journey, is looking at doing 4 or 5 bedroom houses, renting by the room to generate enough income to justify this, kind of the Todd Baldwin way, who does that here in Seattle. But then parking really matters. If you have 4 or 5 bedrooms with 4 or 5 tenants, you're going to have at least 3 or 4 cars there. At a minimum, if there's parking for one, that can be a deal killer. So you go through the math first, and then you go through all the other steps of, are there things with this property that are going to help either limit tenant turnover from my long-term rentals or attract tenants to midterm or short-term rentals? So those are the 2 things that tell you when to buy. None of that said price, rate, rents, market, recession, crash, boom, bull. It was, are you ready? You found a great deal. So if somebody tells you, you better hurry because the market's going to change, and they're telling you to rush, that block that guy, he's a dingus. Because that doesn't tell you, are you ready? Did you find a great deal? If you rush, you're probably going to pick something that isn't a great deal or miss something. And then if somebody says, well, the market's about to crash, you want to wait because they've been saying this for years. Since 2012, there's been a reason every year. And since 2020, the Crash Bros here on YouTube have had a reason every couple of days, a new reason why the market's about to crash in 2 months. It hasn't. So if you're waiting for the crash to buy, you're losing. Let's say somebody saw those videos in 2020 and they said, oh, I'm going to wait a couple months or a year and then buy. And the prices kept going up. Now interest rates have doubled. So they've lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of appreciation, tens of $10,000 in principal pay down, cash flow. They've missed out on what they could have saved for house hacking. They've missed out on the tax benefits. Waiting for that crash. Somebody telling you to hurry, somebody telling you to wait. It's a doofus. Are you ready? Did you find the great deal? When you're hunting for that great deal, you might find it tomorrow. You might find it in 2 years, right? So there's no hurry and there's no wait. It's find the good or great deal and you're ready. Kind of like right now, I just closed on this duplex in July. We're in the middle of, I'm living in one unit that's pretty much done. The other unit's getting a bunch of things done before it's ready. I've never managed a rehab before, and I don't ever want to do it again. So while I'm doing it, I'm doing the members only live streams, and it sucked. Last Saturday, I was like, that's a really good deal. I should make an offer on that property, but I'm not ready. My mental bandwidth is held up in this. So I've got a duplex in Spanaway, Washington, and you, the members who've missed it, you should reach out to me. And I should say, here's one exactly laid out like the one I bought in 2021 for the same price with the rents that have increased since 2021 that I would pounce on if I was ready. Found a good deal. Wasn't ready. Got to know when you're not ready. I'd rather miss a great deal than add stress and not want to invest to get that good deal or that great deal. This is not a get rich quick system, this entire real estate thing. It is a get wealthy for sure, not get rich quick. And Valentino, if it's your first time here, the purpose of my content is to help the average individual realize that you can reach financial freedom and make work optional in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. That's my goal. REI Stoners, that place has double stairs going up to a platform you can sit under and watch dances. Nice. Back in my poker playing days, I was there too much. Just after getting out of the Marine Corps, I worked out there on weekends, but didn't work in the clubs because I'm not tall enough. I'm only 5'9". To work there, you have too much of an overshare. Blame the water. Valentino, wealth building journey. I'm new here at number 2. Perfect. Now you do. Daniel, howdy. A duplex, Finally came up in my buy box, have been waiting for over a year. I got outbid. Even in this market, my offer was to get me 10% cash on cash, as I did with my other duplex. Was I too greedy? No, but there's another step, Daniel. You got outbid. Make sure you reach out to your agent and you say you want to send a confirmation email to the listing agent that if that falls through, your offer still stands. Over half my portfolio has been acquired by being in what's called second position. So they'll go through and then maybe that person doesn't appraise, or maybe that person says, I'm going to get it locked in with a high rate, and then I'm just going to beat the crap out of the seller until they lower the price by negotiating with the inspection report, which is what I do. And then so the seller backs out. Well, they're more likely to back out if they know your position is sitting there waiting. Your offer is still sitting there waiting. So hopefully you've done that. Let them know your offer still goes in case theirs falls through. Andrew, howdy. Dion, apologize. Child started screaming. The second you started saying one, need to see two things, you know if something was a good deal. Yeah. So howdy, my friend. Glad to be here. Glad you're here too. Yeah. So to know if you should buy, are you ready? Did you find a great deal? Those are the only two things that tell you. Nothing else does. If you think interest rates are going to come down by 50%, that's a gamble. If you think interest rates are going to go up by 50%, that's a gamble. But if you're ready and you found a great deal and it makes sense today when you buy it, or you found it in 2 years and it makes sense that day when you buy it, that's when you buy. Michelle, the thing I like with him is that he's relatable. That's a nice way to say stupid. And if I could do it, you can do it too. Thanks. I started in 06 and got scared as I almost lost it all. Yeah, that was a kind of a bad time to start. Most of us don't make over 8 figures. You are in the right place. Most of us don't make over 6 figures. Yeah, 6 figures. There you go. Most of my career, I don't think I ever made over 50,000. I was down. I had a CDL. I could easily go out and get a $100,000 a year job, but I worked for Wilcox Farms. Made $30,000 to $40,000 before getting into law enforcement, where I made about $48,000 because the farm with Wilcox was close. It was 10 minutes away. They had a company hunting around 1,300 acres. You can go hunting on a company pool, company farm store. Kids could run. My kids, I'd take a sleeper truck. The kid would ride in the back of the truck, and I'd make deliveries around here. It was like I worked there for the family nature of working at Wilcox. Wasn't the money. And then I find out, hey, all these truck drivers out here are actually making some pretty good money. Should have done that. Valentino, Michelle Meyer, thank you, Michelle. Yes, quickly found that most honest and transparent guy in this space. Thank you very much. Following the trifecta, Zuber, Lumberjack, and Dion. Yep. I would add Millennial Mike to the mix there, the REI Avengers. Good information coming from all size, all sorts, different goals. If you figure out, do you want a huge portfolio? Do you want just financial freedom? Do you want to recycle capital, recycle cash flow, self-manage, do the Burr method? Like all that information is all mixed in there. And we disagree on some things. And I think that is where some of our best conversations come from. And you would add Millennial Mike. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah. Beth Traverso, howdy. The other person that we get great information from. Art, does Hemlane screen using all top 3 credit bureaus? I'd have to look at the last reports I got sent. I don't know who it was. I think it was, I don't remember. Who do they? I don't know if it's all top 3. I know you get a report from one and you get credit score, credit history, because so I'm trying to process this to be transparent. Hemlane puts it out on 30 platforms. Everything that I know of pretty much except Craigslist. And if the applicant finds it on Zillow, you get it the way Zillow screens it. If they find it on apartments.com, you get it the way apartments.com does it. So I don't know that Hemlane has a dedicated, here's how our application process works. It depends on the platform that it's found on. And I do know that I kind of prefer Zillow to apartments.com. I used apartments.com for years, but Zillow is like $10 less for the application fee for the tenant and seems to get more attention than apartments.com does. Or if you use Hemlane, make sure you use the code Dion Talk to get 20% off of your first year. Howdy, Oliver. Matt, howdy. If you know an AC technician that's good, you can try to get them to work on the side. That's a good point too. Yeah. Larry, howdy. Nice to see you here and alive too. He's from California, currently lives in Western Washington. What are we talking about there? Hopefully talking about me, maybe, because that's true. There's probably someone else too. RA Stoners, California, now lives in Western Washington. Andrew, went down a rabbit hole last night on pad split, okay? Sounded like an old idea that made low-income tenants miserable is back again, dressed up like Airbnb. I realize there are things a landlord could do to make these arrangements less miserable, common area cleaning, service, etc. But what is your opinion on this new trend? I don't think it's a new trend. I think it's a new trend of advertising it that way. Todd Baldwin is very successful at it, and you do pay for clean, common areas. I think he puts a little more, he's got great content on his channel, and he still answers questions if you reach out to Todd Baldwin on social media. The way he screens his tenants, I think he does tend to do, I don't know how well you can discriminate and say, well, this should be an all girls thing or a all guys thing or whatever, but you try not to put, too much, I'm trying to think of how he would do it. So Todd Baldwin would have a better source for that strategy. I've got a couple of roommate situations, which is kind of like renting by the room. And there's actually a thing that Matt the Lumberjack landlord was sharing with me. Section 8, the Housing Authority, in some areas, if there's not enough units, has I forget what he called it, SOS or SOA or something like that, some acronym that means if somebody has a 1-bedroom voucher, they can actually rent a room and use the 1-bedroom voucher to do that. So I think where you can run into problems is some municipalities, like here in Washington, it's August, and in some cities it's 1955. Because they have laws that say only 3 unrelated adults can live in one residence. So renting by the room is kind of blocked there because they don't want whatever their problem was with more than 3 unrelated adults living in a property. So you have to make sure that that's not the case if you're going to do it by the room there. The type of the property attracts the tenant, not the way that they pay for it, not the way that you lease it. So if you're in a war zone area, you're going to get war zone type tenants. If you're in a cleaner area and you're paying for, professional cleaning on certain areas and you have a good lease that defines what people can and can't do, I don't have a problem with it. There's this thing called the real estate X factor. The more risk you're willing to take, the more money you might make. The more work you're willing to do, the more money you might make. Renting by the room, having leases with more than one person on each property is more work. Could make more money. Could make more money. And Michelle, I may or may not qualify as a Dion stalker. Only if we were on the same cruise somehow, but we're not. You're going Saturday. John Williams, Druid and Baldur's Gate 3. Haven't tried. Druid is why I quit playing Diablo 4. What were they thinking? Richard, howdy. Lars, Dion, thank you. I have had the property manager for the last 10 years and both of them cash flow. I look forward to seeing in Vegas during Zuber's event. Please introduce yourself. That would be awesome. I look forward to seeing you there too, except I'm going to be there. RA Stern's always down to interview with you. Trying to figure out if we want to do it on Zoom or if we want to meet in person. Could come and do a live stream at your place while it's under the rehab stuff. I'm open to whatever. Wealth building journey, exactly. Rent control equal risk adjusted rent. Oliver, if you got roof damage from hail and windstorm and found water damage around chimneys, decking, plywood, now concerned about potential mold, if you got tenants living on the other side, what would you do? So with mold, you or your tenants can't say it's mold, it's mildew. That's just tested by a professional. You eliminate the source of water and you do the repairs. When you do repairs on a roof, they're actually going to test the squares and you might replace squares too. I think one of my roofs had minor repairs, but one had 2 full squares that had to be replaced. The roofers will know what needs to be done because they're the ones going to be guaranteeing the work. I would get it done and eliminate the source of water. They also have, depending on how well, not advanced, but how much the mildew has grown, there is chemicals that you could, like a kills paint type thing. Ask let's say contractor, handyman, or roofer, what they would put in there to, eliminate it and to stop it from coming back. But the most important thing is to eliminate the source of water. The source of water can do a few things. And while mold is something scary to everybody, mildew is the problem. The biggest problem that you're going to have is, let me know if I should make a video on this, because it's really simple, but it's in the middle of this live stream and nobody's going to find it unless you're here watching right now. Should I make a video on this? A really big problem we have in the Northwest, so this could be in any kind of wet climate, is there are two types of termites. Right? There's dry wood termites that can happen anywhere, and then you usually have to tent your house. You usually have to fumigate, do all that stuff. But there's wet wood termites, the other type of termites. You don't usually have to tent. What you have to do is eliminate the source of water, and you have to reframe the part that has the wet wood damage, because they can live in wet wood. And as soon as you replace the wet wood with dry wood, they can no longer live in that environment as long as you've eliminated the source of water. So the mildew could be a problem, but a wet roof that's leaking could start the wet termite drive. Carpenter ants can be another issue. But so you want to eliminate the water mostly for that, because framing can be expensive. Hope that helps. RT, homeowners, our biggest competition. Yep, absolutely. They will overpay. They will pay based on payment. They get incentives to buy. If you watch my content, you heard me a couple of weeks ago talk about where the FHA loan came from. It is not an altruistic way for the government to help poorer people to get on the property ladder. It came out in 1934 because the Great Recession had over 2 million people laid off in the construction industry. And the government said, people that aren't working are going to revolt. So we need to get them to work. Let's back home buyer loans, make it work with currently worse credit scores, worse debt to income ratios, and get people buying homes. So home buyers can pay more. And you're going to see this, what is this? This is August. So in a month and a half, you're going to start seeing the YouTubers who know how to grow a channel. I'm not even trying one because it's the time of year. But everybody's going to be like, oh my goodness, property prices are about to go stupid. FHA just raised their loan limits on how much you can borrow. Like they have every November, every year. And people have short memories, like, they're raising the prices on FHA? That means all prices are going to go down. This happens every year, every single year. So those videos will be coming out in about a month and a half. But the FHA loan product exists to spur the economy. Out of like 4 recessions, the FHA loan usage spiked because most people couldn't use conventional loans because they have higher criteria. But FHA has lower criteria, so the use of that spikes, which helps shorten the duration of the recession. This history lesson brought to you by a person who graduated high school with a 1.1 GPA. I know what matters to me. I don't care about much else. And that 1.1 GPA was just so I can get in the Marine Corps. I literally had 2 jobs in high school, and I was teacher's assistant for like 4 of my periods of class. The other ones were the required courses, and I would go once or twice a week to those courses just so the teachers knew I was putting in enough effort to probably graduate. So don't come to me for education on education. Wealth building journey. From what I've seen in my market, though, I'm suspicious of the activity on the same few houses. Identifies to put an offer. Homeowners aren't looking for margin. That's very true. On that either, they are just not. Properties I've seen that are on 60 days on market that sat, all of a sudden, boom, offer accepted. Somebody came in this one here. So the property that I'm in right now is a duplex, poorly listed because you couldn't even tell it was a duplex. The word duplex was used once in the description, but it wasn't anywhere else. No pictures that there were 2 meters, no pictures that there was separate entrances. Like, couldn't tell it was a duplex. Me and Millennium White drove by to see what this place was. On the market for over 100 days. Made my offer. It was listed for 5. I offered 4. They dropped to 477. I dropped for 4. They dropped to 444. I offered 4. They go to 422, and I offered 4. And then I pulled my offer, made an offer on something else, and they called me and accepted it. So I came back. Took this at 4. The investors around here that I've talked to that saw it listed for 5 would have paid 450 all day long. Said they would have paid 450. Didn't think the owner would go that low. Sold to me for 4. When it sits for a while, the right offer at the right time might get offered. You can now identify a motivated seller. Right? This person had to say, I actually kind of don't know if this is a strategy you can use over and over, because I found somebody that was not thinking, but I called the utility companies because I was trying to verify, is this a single family house or a duplex? How many things are there? And the gas company said, well, there's two. And one hasn't been on for years, and the other one was shut off in February due to non-payment. And I was like, oh, money problems. Stay to my 400, don't budge. Too much information. Again, I'm going to blame the water. Phantom competition appears when you put in your offer. Now that's very common. It's been sitting for this long. They go, all right, we've got another offer, so we need your best and final. You've got it. And that's my offer. I offered a few months ago, I offered on one that was listed for 1.25 million. I think I offered 1.1 or 1. I forget, it's been so long. And they came back at 1.2 and I offered 1.1 or something like that. And if they came back with another meet me in the middle, I was going to offer 9. I was going to like lower my offer. Well, 60 plus days on market. I have my eye on property. It's approaching 90 days at a 25% discount. We'll see what happens. Good luck with that. That's what happened here. On the higher, my market is rife with investors. Even my cousin who lives in, I think, San Jose, was telling me about how my market is to invest in clear across the country. Very true. Yeah, San Jose. Nice. Richard, I drove around my town the other day and seen a builder was pivoted to small single-family homes. Drove through to see what's been sold, signs on every house. Nice. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what builders are doing based on what cities are allowing, cities are pushing through, where their funding is being allowed. Building changes often. Now, Tina, thank you for explaining 1 and 2. Yes, I have been hearing for years is crash, crash, crash with the little crash on the side. Because FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt gets views. The crash bros are making money off of YouTube, right? I make about $500 or $600 a month off of YouTube, so I can totally retire, live on that. My money comes from my rentals. I don't care if the YouTube channel grows. I'm trying to help somebody get on the property ladder, maybe 2 somebodies, right? That's my goal. But if your income comes from getting views, and so here's the thing to file away in the back of your lizard brain, Valentino. If you want to help yourself, you tell people what they want to hear. If you want to help someone else, you tell them the truth. And so the fear is the crash could happen. The real estate crash, the stock market crash, the crypto crash, whatever. So the fear helps the content creator. The truth is, a crash doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I thought prices were going up, prices were going down. Am I ready? Did I find a great deal? Buy the property. When those 2 criteria are met, whether it crashed tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now, or never, I would continue to do the same thing. That confounds the crash bros, because they're like, well, we say there's a crash, so you should wait. So if you're saying there's not a crash, you're telling people to hurry. No, that person needs blocked too. Financial firefighter, Aloha, who has a great YouTube channel you should check out. Angel R took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder all night what that was about. Josh, hello from the burning side of Washington State. Howdy. I have a friend who just drove over to see her mom for the weekend and sent pictures of like the orange and yellow and blech. Sorry that you're going through that. Wade, howdy. Hoedown. Just logging in now. We'll have to watch from the beginning once the live ends. Awesome. I sound really great as a chipmunk. Put it on double speed. BuzzTune, you sent me a message. I'll have to look it up. If you plan to live in another country, what changes would you have made to the REI? What was the question you sent me? Unless I'm remembering that wrong. No. Yeah, out of my memory. It's terrible. Resend it, please. If you plan to live in another country, what changes would you have to make as a real estate investor? I went to Portugal. I spent a little over a month in Portugal with my brother a few months ago. I was looking to buy property. What was I going to buy? I was changed real estate investing when I was going to live in a foreign country, since the United States, one of the superpowers we have as a country, while we have a lot of flaws, is 30-year fixed rate debt. I love investing in real estate and knowing that I can fire and forget the mortgage. Mortgage will go up slightly over the years as insurance and property taxes change, but rents will change significantly. Another thing for people who are new to my channel is that since we have started tracking the data in 1940, rents have never once gone down market-wide, not once. Been a few years where they plateau and go flat, but the trend is up market-wide. There are some local areas that can crash. So if I was going to invest in Portugal, it was going to be a cash purchase, because they generally in Europe do 5-year adjustable rate mortgages. I don't want to be a part of that. I never would own myself an adjustable rate mortgage on a property. As I was growing my portfolio or stabilizing it, once you have a huge portfolio, you can make a gamble on appreciation and a gamble on interest rates, as long as you can just write a check and write it off if interest rates tripled when your adjustment kicked in. So it'd be an all cash purchase. I use Hemlane. One of the main reasons I like Hemlane to use on my properties is because while I'm here, I keep it at the lowest cost tier, which is I can collect rents, I can dispatch handymen. I could step up to use their handyman in that mid tier, or I could step up to third tier when I'm traveling in other countries. I'm going to be going to Thailand for at least 3 months, leaving after the cruise to the Mediterranean. I'll be gone for 3 months. I'll still be on YouTube. I'll still be doing my Tuesday stuff. Just won't be doing it here in Washington. And if I need to have a leasing agent go and sign a lease with a tenant, then I'll step up to the third tier of Hemlane for that month, use the service, and then step down. It is totally acceptable to them to do that way. They also have eviction protection that I'm looking into. I had a video with Dana the other day, the CEO of Hemlane, so I'm going to be putting that out. I don't know if I might do that on certain tenants, but not on all of them. So that's probably what I would change going to another country. I don't know that I would step up to property management. If I was in another country investing in a new market, I'd invest with property manager. But since I have my systems dialed in here with a decade of experience, I can manage these from anywhere. I haven't had to go to a property for over 5 years. I don't even know if I had to before then. I just didn't know the things that I could do online through text and email. Then I saw my chat moved. Dividend Dave. Howdy, Dave. Even though you were second, happy to answer a question. Surprised you took this long to ask one. I tried installing a screen door. Now my tenants have a really big window. Nice. Like a screen door on a submarine. Jody. Howdy. Thanks for all the info. Priceless. Nice. Dividend Davis, the Druid. I couldn't play the Druid because of the aesthetics. So I never tried. And then I quit playing the game. And Diablo 3 came out. But I'm actually looking forward to Starfield, which comes out next month. Sean, howdy. Just closed on my first property, a fourplex for 5% down, owner occupied. Everyone told me it wasn't possible, but you just have to find the right mortgage broker. That is awesome. Congratulations. I hear from so many people, if it's an investment property, you have to put 20 or 25% down. And then Velocity Mortgage had investment properties at 10% for like months. And so it changes based on that often. So owner occupied, fourplex, 5% down. Congratulations. My fourplex was one of my favorite ones because it had the biggest, like from 1 month to the next, it was a $2,500 a month change in my cash flow because I rented out the unit I moved out of. And the unit I moved into also cash flowed. I hope yours is an experience full of awesome. Wealth building journey. I'd like to see a video on it. If that's about the fourplex, I would love to. Oh, video on the mildew and the termites. Okay, yeah, that'd be great. I should do that. Sean, thanks for all your free content weekly. That has helped me in a lot of ways. That is the goal. I have free content. I have paid content. I have is Alantino still here? Alantino, you were still here in the comments. What I'm most known for in the real estate world, I think, is not just, stupid dad jokes and sarcasm, but I have a strategy that gets my tenants to ask me to raise the rents. It's called the binder strategy. It actually got me invited on BiggerPockets. It's later how I became one of their teaching assistants for their boot camps. But I don't know if Offended Super hasn't asked me to be a teaching assistant for his yet. I'll have to reach out to him. Sorry, this selfish moment brought to you by the water. If you go to DionTalk.com, maybe one of the people that are here, with the wrenches next to your name there, can put in a link to the Dion Talk binder. I made a free course. You can get it for free. It also has my spreadsheet that I use to track my income and expenses with my real estate portfolio, and it has my seller financing letter that I offer, that I submit with my offers, all in there for free in the binder course. So it's DionTalk.com/binder. So if you want to see how do you get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent, that's the reason I think I'm able to find cash flowing properties on the MLS. All of my deals are from the MLS, conventional loans, except for this last one, because this stupid thing that happens when you own real estate over a decade and you keep adding rentals, you get ridiculous amounts of cash piled up in the bank and you have to put it somewhere. So I bought this place cash, self-funding the rehab. So this is my first burr. And at the end, I might refinance the money out. I might just leave it in there and enjoy the cash flow. Because once you reach financial freedom, more doesn't matter. Trying to think if the 10-year ago me would have believed I said that. Oliver, howdy. When you say eliminate the source of water from wet wood damage, if the source is coming from a water leak on the roof, would you put in a homeowner's insurance claim to replace the roof? I would never use homeowners insurance to fix anything unless it completely burns down or somebody got really injured. I would take the 15% of gross rents that's being set aside for maintenance and repairs and vacancy and use that to pay for the roof. You should have a reserve for your portfolio that should cover the cost of a roof. And, because it was $10,000 when I had 7 or less, my roofs are, somewhere between $5,000 and $9,000. My fourplex costs more than $10,000, right? Because it has a lot of, what are they squares, a lot of squares, because it covers a lot of area, so that costs more. But for an average roof, I get estimates to make sure your reserve covers it, and then the 15% of gross rents goes back into that account to fill it up. If you make an insurance claim, a couple of things can happen. First, no other insurance company will insure you for at least 5 years. Your insurance company can triple your rates, and if you have a claim, the insurance that you have on other properties through the same insurance company that you don't have claims on can triple the rates. They can generally insure you on the other properties from other ones, but not the one that had the claim on it. Your insurance can drop you. And then you get this fun, magical thing where I should make a video on this too. Thank you for that question. The lender can place what is called lender-placed insurance, because they want your property has to be insured, and all they'll do is cover the cost of the mortgage. So if it burns down, you don't get a new building, your mortgage is gone. So then you have to scrape it off and sell the lot. And lender-placed insurance is generally 2 or 3 times more than what your homeowner's insurance costs. That covers the full replacement value of the property. So no, I would probably just pay to have the roof replaced. Take out a line of credit to do it if you don't have the money, and then pay it back with your money from your rents. That's safer than using insurance. But it is, yes, if the source of the leak is the roof, it is a roof. You can have roof repairs done. I've had a roof repair done where it was $250. And the guy actually said, because he had done a roof for me, he goes, actually, it would be $250. We can do this for free. Just, consider us for your next roof. Of course, I'm going to get a bid from them on the next roof, which means I considered them for the next roof. They did have great prices. But the video that's coming out Thursday is going to explain why, while I have had this roofing company do 2 roofs on my next one, there is a reason why I'm going to get at least 3 estimates. And it's not what people think. It is because of the math of time. So good question. That's how I would handle it. Doesn't mean it's the right way. You asked how I would handle it. That's how I would handle it. Joe D. Just to help their algorithm, let's get you to 15,000 subs. Nice. My goal was at least 300 subs. Nailed it. So 15,000 would be awesome. Thank you. I would appreciate that. And then Alantino, if you notice, to talk in this, you had to be a subscriber, and you had to be a subscriber for 5 minutes. That's because when you make a live stream like this, the spam bots come in and just do porn sites over and over and over and over and over. But generally, they don't become subscribers for at least 5 minutes to be able to do. They haven't figured out the bots on that yet. But that's why there's several people here that have like the wrench next to their name, so they can block those. I am finally a wrench on One Rental at a Time who just hit 50,000 subscribers, so I can boot the bots. We're all the same. Oliver, congrats. And then my chat moved, which I like, means more questions are coming. Congrats to Sean Connolly. Please share mortgage broker, and just curious what city you got the fourplex. Happy to make a video with you if you'd like. Reach out. My email, it will be in the chat here. If you're up to it, if you want to. Andy, howdy. I've been only getting applications with credit scores less than 650. Would you recommend I stick to the credit score criteria or be a bit more lenient if they have enough income? So I guess you kind of need to know your market. And then one of the reasons why I take a 700 credit score, and I've got friends with rentals around here that'll take a 6, right? And so they're totally fine. They have more turnover than me. I don't look at income. Right. So if I remove an entire subset of information I can use to determine if this is a person I want to rent or not, that's why my credit score is so high. And I get a lot of applications. If I didn't, if I went a while without getting any applications that came in right, I might adjust it. I'd also look at credit history as much as I look at credit score. And then whatever you choose to do as a criteria, make sure it's unilateral, the same, that's the right word. Uniform. Make sure it's consistent. Because if you lower the score and accept somebody, but you denied somebody else for the score, that is discrimination based on something that they could make up. They could say it was gender, skin color, religion, politics, whatever. You don't want to give somebody the opportunity, so you want to be consistent across the board. If you do adjust your credit, it is adjusted, and then you relook at all of the applicants that came in that would have met that and see if they're acceptable or if there's something else about that specific person that you wouldn't want. A legal way to discriminate. Valentino, not to get off track, but Maui came up to mind and how horrible of a situation that is for everyone. Truly is a worst case scenario. Yeah, financial firefighter Mark is sure was from there, is there. I don't know if he's on that island. I don't know if he's in that city. I know that city's like 80% gone. Yeah. Ultimately sounds like mismanaged emergency system, but I don't live there. I don't know the facts. I'm not going to comment what it was. That's just what I'm saying on social media. And everybody knows this is what Abraham Lincoln said. Everything on the internet is factual. Andrew, my uncle just bought a place in the Algarve. Nice. That's where I went, in the south of Portugal. Andrew, as far as I know, God's not making any more coastline. Portugal is like Southern California in the 70s for all of the D-bags. It is, and it's beautiful. It's like Florida weather without the hurricanes, tornadoes, alligators, panthers. And I would say Cubans, but I'm not racist because I hate two things in life. I hate racists and Cambodians. Careful. That's a joke. Yeah, no, the Algarve is beautiful. It's why I went there. But the information on the cost of properties, I was basing it off of 2018 to 2020. That's not what it is anymore. The average house is over $1 million if it doesn't touch any other structure. And the apartments, there are some cheap $200,000 apartments in places, but most are 700,000, and it's euro. So it's, the $1 million euro houses, 1 million euro houses is like $1.3 million or two or whatever. So it's even worse. And there was two cities I would consider. So me and my brother spent like a month and a half in there, and we did like 4 days in each city to get a good feel for each one. Alvor was beautiful, great coastline, great beaches. And then Albufeira was great for the nightlife. If you want restaurants and you want like a Vegas strip kind of feel on a smaller scale, Albufeira was where I would go. Those are the two places I would probably consider. The rest were, what's really weird about the Algarve, probably I didn't go to much north. I just went to the Algarve because I was looking for the weather, right? You go into the city, and there are some nice cities, and then you take one step out of the city and you are in, it looks like post-apocalyptic war zone I'm trying to think. It's just graffiti and broken down buildings and vacant everything. Just you take your Uber from one town to the next, and you go back, and it's like you're back into District 2 from District 12. Very weird. Roman, howdy. Thank you for taking back a message and making me lose sleep tonight and wonder forever and ever what you said. Wealth Building Journey, thank you for putting in the link. Appreciate that. All Nighter Hider, thank you for putting in the link for anybody who wants a free class on that. Alantino, sounds amazing. Thank you. I was already on board to purchasing your complete course when the timing is right. Still an RE virgin, but I'm popping it sooner than later. We all start with zero, and everything you do in real estate is going to be terrifying the first time. The second time, it almost feels like you could teach a class. And if you set your expectations right, you're not going to be, most people aren't going to retire in 2 years when they start investing in real estate. Most people aren't going to really do many deals in their first 2 years. For me, it was 2 years to acquire the first duplex, 2 years to acquire the next one, then a year and a half, then paid off the property. Then the cash flow starts to snowball, and you get this income snowball thing, and things start happening faster. And it's really, this sounds stupid to say, it's hard to deal with all the money. But that happens at like year 7, year 8. That doesn't mean the first 5 years suck so much you shouldn't do it, Frank. It means that they suck, but it gets better. All Nighter Hider. Chester beat me, but I feel accomplished just finding and sharing. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Peter, what do you do if a tenant damages, breaks something like a screen door and never reports it? So if it's never reported, they live there, not you. Don't care, don't care. But when they move out, their deposit's going to pay for it. I have a tenant that didn't have the money to fix something that they messed up. And most times, if it's like a screen door, I just fix it. Like the screens on the windows, I fixed it. Trim, I fixed it. I'm trying to think of other things. Tenant broke. Obviously, was tenant problem. Sometimes first septic or sewer clog that was a tenant's problem. I might eat that and just say that, for our lease, this is something you caused. Anything like this in the future, it's your expense. But generally, I'll tend to eat those. It doesn't mean you have to. It just means I've been in a position to be able to do that when that's come up. But if they don't report it, I had a conversation with 2 new tenants. I actually told them about my YouTube channel. I told them I try to help because they were signing a lease for a property. And the conversation kind of in my head, hopefully it came out this way when it came to them, was, I know that you're renting and this solves your current issue of whatever you need, move from where you're at, closer to work, whatever. This is the rental that you're looking for. I totally want you to be tenants. I want you to stay here a long time. But what I do is I try to teach people what I did. You're moving into a duplex. Did you know that in the future, when you're ready, I can help you find a duplex? I can introduce you to an agent. I can find a lender for you. I won't make any money off of this. I'll probably lose money when you move out. But if I can help get you on the property ladder, you don't have to be a renter forever. You just have to be a renter for now until you figure this out. You do this every couple of years. In 10 years, you never have to work again. So hopefully they listened. Hopefully they reach out, and hopefully I can help them do that. It's just kind of cool that happens. And there is a big old line of people that are ready to move in. So while I will miss the rent for a month or two when they move out, the feeling of accomplishment of taking that person and getting them on the property ladder is way more important to me than a month's rent. Sorry for the segue. Let me deconstruct it. If they break or damage something and they don't report it, I don't care because I don't live there. They do. When it gets replaced, I could take it out of their deposit when they move. If a handyman or contractor goes there for something, or for some reason I'm there, which does happen rarely. Like I do have this one tenant, I go and I say hi to her every 6 months, and she writes out 6 months worth of checks. And I say, how are you doing? Is there anything here going on? And I would look around and go, if something's broken, I would fix it or whatever. During those inspections, I would get it fixed. If it is something that was obviously tenant's damage, obviously neglect, and the relationship warranted it with that tenant, I would say, this is a you expense. Here's the bill, like a property management company would. Super chat from Frank. Thank you. I don't think your memory is as bad as you say it is. Ask my kids, because I can remember certain facts, and I have a pretty good vernacular because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. But with the brain injury, the memory, there's some people that go, I think I forgot the kids at soccer practice, and I go, oh crap, I think I have kids. I think there's like 3 of them. Yeah. But I do remember certain things like conversations with you, Frank, which I appreciate. Roman, some investors, YouTube personalities are very young. Do they get the advantage? What can you say anything about your younger look as far as advantage or disadvantage? I'm ancient, so I don't have the younger look. The first time I interviewed Cody and Christian Multifamily Strategies, brilliant younger guys, ton of attention. Their strategy is great. Their investing strategy is great. Their personalities, the amount of time they took to learn the vernacular of salesmanship is amazing. You talk to Cody. I sit back when I talk to Cody, I'm taking mental notes because I'm learning just talking to him. But in our first conversation, I asked him, what do you think you could do differently? Of course, every investor says this, even Cody. He wasn't old enough to buy a beer in our first interview, but he had 30 rentals. He said, I wish I started sooner. There's no right time to start investing. It's like we have 2 lives. We have our life, and then we have the day we realize that we have a financial life. Then the rest of our life is different. So many people, before you realize you have a financial life, if you rack up student loan debt for a degree that's going to equal income, great. If you rack up student loan debt for the experience of college, you should have gotten financially free and then went to college for the experience later. They rack up car debt. They buy more house than they need. They rack up credit card debt. And not everybody, because most people never wake up, but we wake up one day and we go, if I don't find a way to put my money to work, I'm going to work until I die. Warren Buffett. If I don't find a way to put my money to work, I'm going to work until I die. And so we realized, well, if I could put my money to work, 8 years later, I never had to work again. I worked for 4 more years because I like my job. And now I'm retired and I literally goof off all the time. Don't ever have to go to work again. Zuber talks about every day is Saturday. So Zuber is 1 rental at a time. Every day is Saturday. Every night is Friday night. I never know what day of the week it is. I never know what time of day it is. I know this because there's a post on here. It's Tuesday. You're doing your live stream, right? But generally, I'm probably going to do a live stream Friday morning, maybe with Matt the Lumberjack Landlord if his internet works. I won't know what time of day it is. It's why I want to do the members only live streams at a certain time, but I don't know what time it is. So this is Saturday. I'm committing to doing members only live stream, which is where we all get on Zoom and we all interact and we look at deals. 3 p.m. Pacific. That's the designated time for this Saturday. But generally those kind of float around and I try to figure out when people are available. Let's see if I can relate this to it. So I used to work at a CDL school and I was talking to 2 people signing up, and there was a 61-year-old and a 20-year-old signing up for CDL training at the same time, sitting at the same desk. Optimally, you would have them each in a different room, but it was by myself talking to both of them. I made the age of the 61-year-old and the age of the 20-year-old the reason they should get their CDL. The 20-year-old can be this company, wherever they're going to go to work, their next 30-year employee, right? They're going to get longevity out of that person. The 61-year-old is going to show up to an employer with life experience, having worked on equipment probably in the 80s and the 70s when the equipment, could be worked on by the person in the truck. So there's a reason why both of their ages mattered. So when it comes to investing, the younger you invest, the more it can compound. The higher risks you can take because you have more opportunities to fix your problems. The older you get, the more important it becomes because eventually you lose the ability to retire early, right? You're just not early anymore. Some people never have the ability to retire. So the motivation to invest at any age is the same. Where I think a lot of people mess up is they say things like, if you invest for 10 years when you're 20 or 10 years when you're 50 and you compound it over this many years, this is why 20 was better. When did you wake up? When did you start thinking about money? And what are your goals? Because I think at 20, 30, 40, 50, or 60, if you're starting from zero, or like me, negative $89,000 in bad debt I didn't know existed until the divorce, within 10 years, you can make work optional. So if you start when you're 20, and you hit it at 30, you have a lot of years like that. If you start when you're 50 and you hit 60, from 60 on is going to be a lot better than if you didn't start at 50. So I'm not sure about the age thing there. I think you want to consider the audience, right? If somebody comes to me and they're 20, 25, and they go, oh, I'm thinking about real estate, or I find somebody I think real estate might help this person, I recommend Millennial Mike. I recommend Graham, Stephan, Meet Kevin, older than 3 years information. Last 3 years, they got so big, most of their stuff is whatever will get in viewers, instead of once in a while, Graham or Kevin will do something like very fundamental on real estate, and I'll send that video to a bunch of younger people. But generally, I say, go to their YouTube channel, look at 3 years or older content, watch a bunch of that, and let's talk. So if I'm talking to someone younger, I send them the younger content. Minority Mindset, Jaspreet Singh. It's one of the channels I watch, like at least one video of theirs every day when it comes out. Some of my favorites, they don't even do anymore. On Minority Mindset, they used to do, he went to, like, I don't know where it was, I'm gonna make up some cities, San Francisco to New York, Minnesota, wherever. He was at some big cities, and he would go out on the sidewalk and he would talk to random people going by, and he would ask them like 10 questions. What is inflation? How much will it take you to retire? Whatever his questions were. And then you get the random street person's amazing moment. Those were they were like 3 or 4 hour videos. They were awesome. He doesn't do those anymore, but he still does, like, 10, 20-minute videos that keep our minds sharp when it comes to finances. I'm hoping that the best way to complement a YouTube content creator, like let's say right now, I go, my favorite content to watch is, one rental at a time, or lumberjack landlord, or Minority Mindset. That doesn't do anything. But if I see a question on YouTube or on Facebook, and I link a video of Minority Mindsets, or I link a one rental at a time video on there, that's the biggest compliment somebody can do to a content creator. So if you're in Facebook and somebody asks, well, how do you raise the rent? You're going to get a bunch of morons that go, never raise the rent on a good tenant because you'll lose a good tenant. Well, if you don't raise the rent on a good tenant, you're going to lose a good asset. So instead of just letting them fall to the wayside of whatever nonsense they're going to hear, if you linked a video to the binder strategy and you said, hey, this guy has a way of raising the rents where the tenant's happy, the tenant sets the rent and it goes up much more than you thought it was going to, that's the best compliment you can do for me. Or LLC rent, or tenants paying for repairs, or whatever video you think resonates to the question that's going on. Wealth building training. All-nighter hider. I Googled it and the link brought me there. Nice. Financial firefighter. I like eviction guard. I wish it was a little more customizable, but not sure if you allow it to be too customizable. Does that allow for discrimination? Maybe. So we just talked about eviction guard, me and Dana, and I'm looking more into it now to make sure I understand it. I think it's a pretty cool feature of Hemline's, especially because, Mark, you're in Hawaii, but you're investing at a distance. And if people aren't familiar with the financial firefighter, he emptied out his retirement accounts and purchased like 14 rentals in the first 2 years at a distance. Took on a whole bunch really quick. Is doing well, but you've even told me, Mark, there's a couple times where you thought, man, maybe I shouldn't have gone so fast. Hemline might help with that. Peter, not my rental, but just found out that my son room has a leak. Recent purchase, so it sucks. It has a flat roof, so have no idea what the damage is going to cost me. So if it's flat roof, it might be torch down. It's pretty easy to fix those. Sometimes you can actually just retorch. Before replacing a roof, ask a roofer if it's repairable. Get a couple estimates. Thank you for the super chat again, Frank, because I see it going by here. I don't think my memory is as bad as I say it is. This is where I have to think, did I talk about that? I see what I did there. And my chat moved. Okay, not my, yeah, that sucks about the sunroof. But that is the cost, and it's that age-old thing where a lot of people say, I never want to rent, I want to own a house. Well, if you own a house, it's not the cost, it's not the mortgage, it's the upkeep, right? It's the property taxes and insurance going up in the future. Now, yes, your rent's going to go up in the future too, but when we own, we have those kind of expenses. Sean, Michigan, and the mortgage broker was Chris from Evermore's Lending. Nice. Awesome. That's the 5% down, 4plex. Owner occupied. Monica, howdy. Any recommendations on companies to get a HELOC for an investment property? So Matt, the mortgage guy, is probably who I would reach out to. But whenever I'm looking for something like a loan or a home equity line of credit, I have an order of operations for lending. I generally start with a largest bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, because they're going to have the most standardized criteria. People who watch my content often are going through this in their heads right now. You hear my voice in your head, and I haven't even said it yet, because that's how my brain works too. After the Wells, the larger banks, then I'll look at Guild Mortgage, Fairway Mortgage, or a broker like Matt, the mortgage guy, who has a team all over the country, right? And then compare. And it's not just comparing what's the interest rate. It's how long is the rate fixed? What is the cost to buy down the rate? How much will they approve me for? Because if you talk to a lender, this is as a form to encourage lender shopping. If they do a hard credit check, you're going to lose about 6 points on your credit score. Lasts about 3 months, then it comes back. But for 30 days, a window of opportunity, 30 days after you have a hard credit pull on your credit, similar lenders do not have an additional impact to your credit score. So I would check several places and then compare rates and terms to figure out which one was the best one to go through. That's the answer to your question. Here's the thought that I would like to inception into your mind. That was used completely wrong. I am disappointed in my grammar. Incept? No. Okay. If you're going to get a home equity line of credit, some people think, how do I tap the equity of my house? And they'll say the words, how do I tap that? How do I use this money? Let's redefine that. It's not equity. It's not money. It's you have the ability to add debt to an existing asset. So let's say you take out a home equity line of credit to buy a rental, and the rental cash flows. Does that cash flow cover the increased debt on the first asset? Can you pay off a home equity line of credit before the interest rate adjusts? Because I wouldn't want to have a HELOC pulled out. That might last longer, and then rates might double or triple before I can pay it off. If that was the case, if you can't, then maybe you look at a second mortgage, because you don't want to do a refinance right now because you're already existing debt. You don't want to touch the interest rate there. So if you do a second mortgage, they'll have a higher interest rate, but it'll leave the first loan alone. Fixed rate debt longer term. Benefit to the HELOC is as you pay it down, you can reuse the funds. HELOCs can be canceled. Lenders can say, oh, we're canceling that loan. Doesn't mean you have to pay off any funds that you've used. It just means you lose access to any remaining funds that you had available. So you kind of got to figure all of that out. But the question before that is, what's the use of the money? Before you determine HELOC, second mortgage, refinance, sell to 1031, do you have a use for the money that justifies the added debt to that first asset? That's where I would start. All neither hider. Thank you, Valentino. Your presence and questions are our motivation. Thank you. I totally agree. Angel R. In your properties, are you putting electric water heaters? Yes. Or keeping gas. I would delete gas out of everything because I'm on the West Coast. If you're on the East Coast, gas is a more cost-effective way. More people are keeping it in. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, keeps gas in his. I deleted it, just deleted it out of the place I'm in now. Had gas heater, had electric water heaters, didn't have gas there, but I deleted the gas system completely. Already there. A lot of talks lately talking about carbon monoxide buildup and slow death, tenants panicking, and states like Washington State, where the RTARD in charge is trying to make gas stoves illegal. Andy, how long would you say it'd be a fair amount of time to get to know my applicants market before I start adjusting the criteria? 1 to 2 months worth of applicants, something like that. Yes. I would also talk to local investors and find out what is kind of normal there. Millennial Mike has talked about his property manager, where his properties are in Gary, Indiana, that if somebody has a 580 or higher credit score, they buy the house because the houses are $30,000 to $50,000. So a higher credit score there isn't the criteria that you go off of. Now, he does primarily use the Section 8 housing voucher program there. So that might be a different credit score that they would go to. For me, in my area, Section 8 or non-Section 8, it's 700 credit score. I get both. So it just depends on your area. But I would say, yeah, a month or two. Anytime you see somebody say rents are going down, the first thing that happens before rents go down is owners give concessions. So this is something that we generally as investors steal from apartment complexes. Apartment complexes don't lower the rent. They might not go up as fast, they might stay flat. But what apartment complexes do is they give concessions, free moving truck, half a month's free rent, full month's free rent to move in, to incentivize people to come in at that rental amount, because they're less likely to move out once they're already in, and then you can adjust rents next year. So before I adjusted my criteria, I might do a concession. Hey, looking at half month's rent, full month's rent, free moving truck, whatever you can afford to do this to make it work. And then also say, but you also have to meet my criteria. And try that probably at 2 or 3 weeks, a month and a half. I might start looking at adjusting it, but also checking with other investors to see what happens locally in that market. Oliver, thank you, Sean, for sharing. Good deal. Excited for you. Please share your journey. I agree. Oliver, thank you, Dion, for your real content. You continue to keep us encouraged. Awesome. That is totally why I'm here. Alex, howdy. Is 10% deductible a good idea? 10% deductible a good idea. I will not file a claim for small costs. Why pay a high premium? I do. I don't do 10%. I do 10,000. And so I've got a couple of policies where it's a $5,000 deductible, because whenever they were put in place, that's the highest they had. But about, I want to say almost half my portfolio has a $10,000 deductible. So 10% is probably good, depending on the price of whatever you're dealing with. I do the largest deductible possible and will only use a claim on a massive thing. I want to make sure that my reserves are more than my deductible, just in case. But yeah, I believe in higher deductible, less claims. Good way to look at it. Financial firefighter. Reasons that was given for not sounding one of the most sophisticated emergency alarm systems was a joke. Heard of the emergency response, resigned because of health reasons. He was even in Maui. He was on Oahu for a FEMA conference. He didn't even check out of his hotel until the next day, didn't even leave early, and hop on a 30-minute flight to handle the emergency. That was the guy that he stepped down, right? That doesn't sound good. Peter, did you have an inspection checklist that needs to pass before buying a rental? Not a checklist that has to pass. What I have is I'm looking for the right yield. So annual profit divided by cost to acquire. Cost to acquire is down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs, right? So when I have the inspection done, if it goes, everything's great, you got to replace one door. Okay, so a door, to replace the door, it's $160. To replace the door and frame might be more. Installation of the door and the frame might even cost more. Well, what does that do to my yield? If you have an inspection, and I did, I had this one property, it was one of the first ones that I backed out of in the first like 8 years. It was the only one I backed out of buying once I had an offer accepted. Found $50,000 worth of damage. There was a water leak that had gotten to all the joists. So the full framing of this place needed done from this, basically. All the doors had failed, windows had failed. It was just all the way around. It was all these expenses that you really couldn't tell from the pictures or from standing up front of the building. And then it appraised low as well. So luckily I had a couple of things saying, hey, get out of here, it's a bad deal, because it killed the yield. How much will it cost me to make it rent ready? So it's not so much that I have a criteria. Now, when I was working, I did kind of have, I never bought a turnkey, like, call a company and pay for them to turnkey it and give it you the keys, right? Because there's an upcharge there. But I would buy properties on the MLS, preferably with tenants in place, because that generally meant plumbing and electric and everything worked, right? I think most of them I spent less than $2,000 getting rent ready. The only one I had a big expense on was my fourplex. I put a roof on, knew in advance that was coming. Added that to my cost to acquire, still hit the yield I was looking for. So that's how I kind of look at that is on the inspection report, what's my estimated cost to get this to where I want it? Estimated cost in money and time to make it rent ready. So while working, it was a lower threshold for time. Money depended on what it did to the yield. Now that I'm retired, I bought one that needed, as I did the walkthrough, the contractor to do, under contract. I estimated, I'm thinking, somewhere between $15,000 and $100,000 for repairs. Make the offer where it makes sense. So they listed it at 5 because it needed a bunch of work. ARV is about 750 on the light side because it's got some other elements that everybody that's seen it keeps telling me it's worth more than that, but I went conservative at 750. So I bought it for 4. I figured if I put in 100 and I did a cash out refinance, it's almost like a perfect burr. I would get out 75%, get all my money back, have an asset the house hack and rent out. But I might not do the cash out just because I don't need to. The amount of work that needed to be done, once I was under contract, I had a contractor walk through and he estimated about $30,000 to fix everything. So I budgeted 50 and set aside 80, right? That was my math on what I thought would happen. Looks like we're going to be around the 50 when we're all done to get some nicer touches done too. But the time, because I'm now retired and my kids are over 18 and moved out, and the money still gets me my yield. That's how I made that decision. So it's not so much a checklist as what's it do to the yield? What's my time commitment available? Probably going to be wrapping up in about 5 to 10 minutes. All-nighter hider. That's disgusting, Mark. Integrity is dying. I would type that. It's dead. But I think the viewers here display enough to pause my thumbs. Wade, what are your thoughts on a traditional duplex or triplex versus 2 or 3 homes on a 2 to 3 acre parcel? What's the yield? I think in some markets, turnover might be less in a single family house. The 2 to 3 properties on the same property, if you can get a lender to consider that a triplex, it's easier to get lending on. If it's a house with an ADU, that's true single family. It's much easier to get that lending too. I like what Zuber says. So there's a difference. Zuber says, I look at a 10-unit complex, 4-plex, or single family. Which one's got the best yield? I pursue that one. For me, it's the fixed rate debt. So Convoy home loans will go up to 8 units. So I look at 8 units or less for fixed rate debt. Then I look at the yield. I've looked at, my goal was to get a 4-plex. I wanted $1 million plus 4-plex in the last couple of years, never found the right deal. I was ready, didn't find the deal. Found a duplex that made sense. So 2021, bought a duplex. Found a duplex just now that made sense, bought the duplex. Kind of wanted the 4-plex, but this is where the yield was. I've looked at several, I own a triplex, which is actually a house and a duplex. So it's right in the middle of your question. One of those is an ADU, but I don't know which one's which. So it's a triplex, which is a house, and I purchased it because the yield was right. I've had 1 tenant turnover on that triplex, and it was in one of the duplex units. House is still there. I was hoping for the house to turn over. They watch my content. It's not that I don't like you guys. You guys are great. Actually, both of you are from the 2 towns I grew up in. Each of you is from one of those. So weird that we're in Washington, but you're from there. It's because I wanted the short-term rental or mid-term rental of that house to do that, to make videos, to see how it go. Don't need the money. Don't really want to do the extra work, but the content I think would be good. It would be another experience to share and to say, this is what I learned and where I went for sources of information, like my friend Captain Sags, Tony Stagastiano, I gotta butcher that name, who does, have a way to look at midterm rentals, short-term rentals, and compare to get, say, how you should run your property. I would, look at, Matt was just on Millennial Mike's channel, who does short-term rentals, but he's got a work history in sales. So he took his sales knowledge and translated that into short-term rentals. I'd be hitting him up going, because he comes to our local Tacoma group. I would be looking for my resources of how I would do that. So Wade, hunt for both, pounce on the first great deal when you're ready. Lars, the prosecutor should find something to bring charges against the guy. If you can't find it for the actual event, find something else. And no one is that clean. Good point. Ali, the same question. Why is your head like an egg? There's a mom joke in there somewhere. Not sure. Why is my head like an egg? I'm not an egghead. Eggheads are smart, right? When you make the joke about somebody being an egghead, it's because they're like what are they, engineer? The eggheads built it. BuzzTune. Howdy, thanks. Sorry, sneaking in questions while working for multifamily. Is there arguments over parking between tenants? That's why when you look at not only just multifamily, but house with ADU or roommate situation, parking, wealth building journey, one of the hours when people bought the course, I was giving away like 5 hours, and several different people got the 5 hours thing, or the 1 hour thing for 5 people. And I think I've done like 8 of them. So if you're one of those hours, congratulations. You were one of the 8 that got one of the 5. This all makes sense if you don't think about it. Parking killed the deal. on one that Wolf Building Journey was looking at. He was like, it's got the bedrooms, it's got the bathrooms, it's got everything I like, but it had space for one, maybe two cars to do a rent by the room, 4 or 5 bedrooms. So I definitely look at parking. I don't have arguments. I'm trying to think. I have clearly delineated this is where the parking is on the leases. I do have one person at my fourplex that has, I'm not sure which tenant it is, but it's like a trashed car that's been mangled, parked in one of the spots. But each tenant has 2 spots and no one's complaining. So it's either a tenant's second vehicle or a third, and not enough people have. So no, I haven't had any arguments there. So it's what I look at. One of the criteria that I look at on my properties. What's the parking? Does the parking satisfy the needs of the people who are going to live here? Good question. Andrew, in the mic chat mood. BuzzTune, I think he would probably say that it is one of the things he looks at in the property. Side-by-side units, laundry in each unit, parking for each unit. Yep. Andrew, less interactions between tenants is better. Yeah, that is absolutely true. Andrew. And of course, room for plenty of stuff, because the more stuff someone has, the less likely they are to move. It is like you guys have watched my content. I feel validated, not vindicated, validated. All that matter, man, I've been getting calls like a switchboard operator, gonna try and focus now. Awesome. Oliver, is there a limit of how many people can live at one of your Section 8 rentals? Generally, they qualify for a voucher based on the number of adults who can have income. So number of kids, not really. The more kids, usually the bigger voucher they get, but the number of adults, yes. So if you have a Section 8 tenant, you have somebody move in as a roommate, you have to tell Section 8 because it's an attempted fraud. I don't know if you have to tell Section 8. So you're not the police, but I probably would. Yeah. Hasn't been an issue yet, though, generally. I haven't seen it pop up. So I don't know that it's a limit to how many for Section 8. Yeah. But their voucher is going to say the allowable income based on the number of people in the family. Could all be changing because our wonderful POTUS wants to put an additional $2.6 trillion into entitlement programs, which does have a benefit for people who invest in real estate, but it will increase welfare, food stamps, all the things, so if you need it because you have a temporary problem in your life, totally get it. But if you're on it forever because you just don't feel like working, I don't like those kind of things. But here's the benefit for people who invest in real estate. Obamacare is going to get, it's like 146 billion or something like that. I forget the number. It's something like, it's over 100 billion in additional funds. Now, when you invest in real estate and you retire early on real estate, here's the beautiful thing of our healthcare system. Healthcare in the United States sucks, right? If you make less than $46,000 a year, you start getting healthcare subsidies. So they start contributing money towards your healthcare. Well, last year I had a lot of money from a W-2, so I wouldn't have qualified. I could use the healthcare, but I would have paid the full premium. This year I'm retired. I have zero income from a W-2, and my hundreds, pluralize that, of thousands of profit in real estate will be, because of depreciation and write-offs, will look like I took a loss in income. It's like Congress is full of 500 people who own properties that keep making rules that benefit people who own properties. I'm going to pay zero. I'm going to earn zero. So for the CARE, the ACA, America's CARE Act, guess who gets almost free healthcare? Real estate investors. I'm trying to blink and deliver Morse code to you. It's like investing in real estate is a good thing for you. So, more funding for Section 8 housing subsidies coming. And we're going to see one of the largest increase in 2024, 2025 to the Section 8 program, because their data that they set their rents on is based out of 7 years. They don't count the last 2. So it's what happened in the 5 years just prior to the most recent 2 as it scales through time. With us, the math of time. What happened in 21 to 2022? One of the biggest rent jumps, 30 to 40%, pretty much market wide. That's going to impact Section 8 end of 2024, 2025. Be a good time to own some properties that had some Section 8 tenants, which I use, if you're new to my channel, as a diversification strategy. I keep about 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 military, and 1/3 working or retired. This way, a pandemic, a stock market crash, a prolonged government shutdown doesn't impact my entire portfolio. Before anybody jumps on me in the comments, which they generally don't, because if you're here, you've been here enough to know that you can't advertise military only or Section 8 only or no Section 8 allowed, right? But you can control how you advertise. I have a unit where a gentleman in the Air Force is going to be moving out in the next couple of months. He's getting orders. So if I go and I advertise that unit on base, who do you think I'm going to get? If I have a Section 8 tenant or a unit open that I want to go to Section 8 and I call the housing authority and I say, hey, counselor, here's a link to my listing that's going to go live on Tuesday. Can you share this with your tenants that have a voucher for this number of bedrooms that are currently looking? Who do you think is going to be the first applicant? You can control how you advertise to do that diversification strategy. And with more funding coming for Section 8, I want to be in a position to benefit from that. BuzzTune, thanks, Andrew. And Richard took back another message to make me lose sleep tonight. Andy, if you had a time machine, what would you say to younger Dion other than don't get married? So if you watch one of my favorite videos I made, and I stopped making these because they don't portray very well on YouTube because people listen and they don't watch. And if you play more than one character in your own videos, it's not like Super Easy, Barely an Inconvenience, whatever that guy is. Ryan something that reviews movies and he plays both characters. He's brilliant at it. I'm not. But my one video called Wish I Had More Debt, How Debt Set Me Free, where I talked to 10 years ago myself. $89,000 in bad debt I didn't know existed until the divorce. Single parent raising 3 kids. Financially free, never have to work again. Got here because I used more debt. Talk to myself. At the end of that video, I do give myself some advice. Never date a coworker. I can go back and say the same thing. I would give the advice that I give to most people at the end of most of my videos. Not all, but most. To my younger self. First, I call myself an idiot. So I get my attention. It's how my family expresses love. Hey, idiot. You are going to be alive in 5 years. Start investing like it. Eventually, we are going to be our 5-year or 10-year from now selves. Do you want to be thanking yourself? Because if I could go back right now to 2018, I wouldn't tell myself anything. I'd be like, hey, do what you're going to do because life is amazing right now. I never have to work again. I have more money than I need. I can do anything I want. I'm traveling everywhere. The worst thing about my life is going out into the world and having a waiter or somebody at a Lowe's or Home Depot or who's working, who's trapped in a job that they hate. I have to interact with them and I feel bad for them because there is another way. We're all trapped in a job for at least 10 years in the way I see the world, at least 10 years. But after those 10 years, if you're still working, you're choosing to. And that sucks. And then I see a super chat, Dividend Dave. I love big sheds. I cannot lie. Me too. Your other landlords can't deny when a new tenant moves into your place with a big ass shed parking in your space. Thank you, Dividend Dave. Great way to wrap up a live stream with a dad joke. Awesome. I like that. I do like sheds. Added one at one of my properties to store my stuff, and tenant saw it and said, hey, I have a storage place. I would love to have a shed here. I pay an extra $100 a month and sign a lease. And I was like, hey, this shed's costing me $3,300. So if I had a shed and I get $1,200 a year, that's like a 30% return on my money. And if that tenant moves out, I have 2 sheds. So now there's 4 sheds there. Thanks, Dave. Much appreciate that. Oh, Frank, you're welcome. Deanna says thank you. My long time, you know how people have like a friend or a best friend, or I have a friend that I've had a long time, I don't know how you would consider it, but his spouse's name is Deanna, and imagine the jokes that we get there. Dion is already close enough to being a girl's name. You had to girl it up some more. Make sure I get through the rest of these and I'll probably be wrapping up here. Laura, let's help grow this community and be supportive of each other so that we can all learn and reach financial independence. Dion, thank you so much for all you do. Thank you, Laura. That is very much appreciated. All right. So, Marine Corps veteran, former law enforcement, truck driver. You take those three careers and you would think, not so much on the big soft side, right? So I'm going to share something that is more soft than I normally want to present myself. One of the real cool reasons that I think I like to do this content, why I have the channel, why I do the course, why I take the calls, why I put this time into this, it's not to make money, right? With the portfolio, my struggle is what I do with the money. It's because I'll wrap this up with this. And so if there's any other questions, let me look really quick to make sure there's any other. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Let me wrap this up. This will be the closeout, and then I'll probably end the video. So I won't answer any more questions after this second. I was a single parent that found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until the divorce. I got laid off from a police department in 2008, the job I thought I dreamed about having. Started teaching. I went to work for Oak Harbor Freight Lines, made like $115,000 a year, and they went on strike and I lost that job. So I went back. I started teaching people how to drive trucks, making $17 an hour. So $17 an hour, 3 kids, single parent. Always been good about keeping the house and keeping custody of the kids. Never been able to keep a girl around. There's a lesson there. I don't know what it is, but there's one there. All that debt, low income, bad debt to income ratio. Imagine the emotional arc that I go through on acquiring an asset, getting the ability to save, working my way up to the company, earning more money, getting more rentals, reaching financial freedom, working for 4 more years, retiring, and never having to work again in my life. That, to me, it's better than winning the lottery. A couple of reasons. One, the lottery, you're lucky. When you do it yourself, you have that sense of accomplishment. But the real cool thing with doing it yourself is 70% of lottery winners and people who get a large windfall of money, like sports ball players, within 5 years file bankruptcy. When you reach financial freedom yourself in 10 years or less, even if you file bankruptcy, you know that you can do it again. That's where the confidence comes from. So I have this arc of imagine the euphoria that comes when I sit back every now and then and I go, what do I want to do tomorrow? I don't know, but it's not work because I don't have to. So I can do anything I want. Anything, anywhere that I want. I can only do that once. I'm not going to give everything away, sell it all, dump it into crypto, watch it go away, whatever, so that I could do it again, so I could feel all that again, right? So a proxy for that is this. When I meet somebody that's new to the channel, or somebody that comes every single week and drops comments and helps me filter out the bots, which is appreciated, and you are like Dividend Dave, or Scott, or Michelle, or Josh, and you guys go like, oh, here's the conversations, I've got these questions, okay, great. And then I might never hear from you again. Or a couple months later, I get this call and Dave goes, hey, I've moved across the country, or moving across the country, bought a duplex, I'm going to house hack it. Or I'm right here in Tacoma, I use the agent you connected me with, closed on my duplex. I'm going to move in and do the rehab, the repairs now. I get that whole emotional arc of going from, I know your position wasn't great, right? Dave didn't inherit millions. I mean, Josh, he moved different states to move to a market where the numbers made sense. And you're on that arc, right? It might be a kind of a bell curve looking arc, but you're on the start. I get to experience all the way through that with you. So Laura, same with you. Every time you guys share something with me, if I use the binder strategy, this is the rent increase, and my tenants are happy, that's huge for me. So thank you all very much. And that's as soft as I can get. I will see you all in a live stream Friday morning, probably with Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, if his stuff works. You should check out his stuff. Lumberjack Landlord does an actual live stream Sunday mornings. He's having internet issues. And then I have a video coming out Thursday. So until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.